Yes, it is, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. We have crawled out of the storm. We've made it to the night show, coming to you live from the great state of Florida on the Nature Coast. We got we got a show in store for you tonight. It's going to be one of those nights, I got to tell you. I came into the studio and a little bit earlier, and sure, it happened as I suspected. For those that don't know, last night's show was canceled or postponed. We will get Stephanie Osborne back on the show tomorrow, first thing. Wow, I can't hear myself. It's weird. There we go. But yeah, we had a little lightning storm come through the area last night, about 20 minutes before the show start, and knocked out a bunch of our computers. It was insane. And sure enough, when I came into the studio this afternoon, a couple of them did not want to boot up. They did not want to behave. But, you know, we pulled out the proverbial bigger stick, bigger hammer, and it got them working. But for all of those that were looking forward to seeing Stephanie, I will tell you, we have already rescheduled her. She will be on the show next Wednesday, and Stephanie is very gracious. She understood our situation. But yeah, it was weird. But I don't believe in coincidences, I guess is the word. I really don't. And let me tell you why. Because I recorded a episode with Gerard Artisan. And Gerard, during the day yesterday, we were going back and forth on when we were going to play that episode. And I was torn if I was just going to play it as a bonus track or what I was going to do with it. Well, you know, God answered that one for me last night. So we got it out there last night instead of Stephanie. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was actually recorded last week and everything. But we are here live in the studio. That's right. I am here. You are not seeing a hologram of me. You're not seeing a replay. So we are monitoring the chat room and look forward to hearing from you during tonight's show. Now, tonight's show is going to be, this is one, let me tell you, this is one that I've been waiting for a while. And let me tell you why. Because when you are in podcasting, there are certain podcasters, certain people that kind of, I want to say, braved the trail for us. Especially us in the conservative side of things, in the religious side. So tonight's guest, I want to introduce you, is Derek P. Gilbert. And so you guys don't know, he was like one of the first internet podcasters. Yeah, this guy he's a young man, but he was one of the first. But he is currently the host and news anchor analyst for Skywatch TV. One of my favorite internet sites, Skywatch TV, a Christian media ministry, host of the internet radio show A View from the Bunker, and co-host of PID Radio, one of the earliest internet-only programs on the web, with his wife, author, and analyst, Sharon K. Gilbert. So without any further ado, Derek, are you there, my friend?
Yes, it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. You're looking good these days, man. What are you doing? Are you at like exercising? What's going on?
We have a big building, and the men's room is on the opposite side of the building. So yeah, that's how I get my exercise.
Is that what it is? You're
lots of coffee.
Yeah, you're looking pretty good, my friend. You're a lot thinner.
Dropped about 30 pounds this year, but it's mainly the inspiration is Sharon. She's been just eating healthy. We've been avoiding starches, the things that our grandmothers knew, avoid potatoes and breads and simple carbs, processed foods, and it comes off.
Yeah. See, I wish I had that. When I moved out of Chicago, my hope is I would eliminate those carbs. No pizzas, no pastas, no none of that. But no, it hasn't happened. Yeah,
when you're in Chicago, though, you got to have the Geno's East, so you can't give it up then.
That's right. You got to do Unos or Geno's, or Maggiano's. I mean, Let's not. That's the only thing I do miss about not being in Chicago is the plethora of great, fine dining establishments.
Italian beef. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And, the Portellos, all those things that we wish. But it is funny though, because we are actually, one of my favorite places, Timmy Hortons. We just found out that they're here in Tampa, which is not in Chicago, but that's a northern coffee shop, along the Canadian border. And if you travel into Canada, you can't miss a Timmy Hortons. They're like, I think they outnumber McDonald's and Burger King put together as far as on every street corner. So,
well, the important question for a fellow Chicagoan then is Cubs or White Sox?
I am a Cubbies.
All right.
I am a Cub. Now, well, let me back that up. I am rooting for the Cubs. When I first moved to Chicago, believe it or not, my next door neighbor, I went through corporate housing because I was there for computer work. My next door neighbor was Kerry Woods.
Wow.
And Brent Brown. Yeah, and Brent Brown. I was there when Kerry pitched, and I used to get, I'll tell you, Kerry always gave me sucky tickets to the game, but Brent always gave me great tickets. That year, when I moved to Chicago, it was awesome because I went to because I was a consultant and I worked at nights, working on a system down there in Riverdale, Illinois, at a steel mill, writing PDL software, software for their mills. And so that was done at night. So during the day, I got to see every home game. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. And
considering Brown dropped that key fly ball in that game against Milwaukee.
That's right.
He owed you the good tickets.
He owed me it, but then he ended up getting traded.
Yeah.
He ended up getting traded to him, which is incredible. But no, that was a great year. Sammy was hitting it and just doing it incredible. One of the treats, my father, is a big baseball guy, and he's a Detroit fan, but he's still a baseball guy. He respects the sport. And for his birthday, we had tickets, and we were literally about 3 rows from the batter's plate, or from the up deck section, where they practice before going on. And we got Sammy to turn around and say hey to my dad, which was pretty cool. And it was good times. It was good time. But to be honest, I stopped watching the Cubs when Sammy got that huge contract, the $10 million contract. Right. And then the Tribune turned around and laid off like 100 or 1,000 people the next day. And I said, you know what? I have a hard time with that. I just, but it looks like they're going to go this year, right? Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And my daughter was out in Pittsburgh last night, saw them win their 100th game.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat. So she's actually in St. Louis, and she and her mother traveled out to Pittsburgh to watch that game.
Sure.
Rooting for opposite teams, I think, but for my daughter's sake, it turned out the right way.
Yeah. Well, Sandy turned me, and she's a Red Sox. She's a Beaner fan, so we root for the Red Sox here at the Norton. But I also root for the Mets. I've got to make that one clear, considering I built their phone system for them. I don't want Jeff, the owner of the Mets, calling me up saying, "Hey, come on, man." So I'm not really how do I say this? I'm not really a baseball. I'm more of a hockey fan. That's where I go. And no, I'm not a Blackhawks fan. I'm a Red Wings fan. It's all right though, because you guys got most of our players. So.
Well, we moved away from Chicago when I was 15, and I admit that I lost interest in the Blackhawks after the Bobby Hull, Dennis Hull, Tony Esposito era. So I've not followed them. I kind of followed them from afar the last couple of years during their period of success. I would have liked to see Joel Quenneville stay with the Blues, because I was actually a Blues fan for a while there, but I just come back to baseball. Baseball is my first love. Growing up in the era before computers, we had to go outside and play.
That's right.
Yeah. And for a kid with flat feet and asthma, at least I could hit a ball. So that was the one athletic skill that I was born with, but not well enough to hit a major league curveball. So I sought my fortune in other areas.
But hey, that's great. My brother was he was quite a pitcher. Set a lot of Ohio Valley Conference records and things of that nature. And
where did he play?
He played for Mitsu, Middle Tennessee State University.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
we just spent 4 years in Charleston, which is the home of Eastern Illinois University. Yep. So I got familiar with the OVC.
Yep. So no, he played at Mitsu, and he was outstanding. My brother's brilliant. He's one of these guys that I'll talk about a little bit about family here, which is probably a no-no, but I don't care. He'll call me later. So he was one of these guys that he was looked at very heavily and at the majors, and he was smart enough to say, hey, look, if you can't put it in your contract that if I don't make it to the big show, that you'll pay for the rest of my college, I'm not interested. And sure enough, then he had a accident where he tore a rotator cuff lifting weights in his off season. And he was smart enough. He went on, and several degrees and advanced degrees later, he is a rocket scientist. So, but now he does alternative energies, and it's just amazing things that work that he does in the alternative energies. Wind turbine. Apparently, I haven't seen it yet, but my family, there's a picture of him standing on top of a wind turbine, which is just, to me, that would be awesome. To have that opportunity.
Things are huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're massive. You have no idea. Well, one of the funnest things we used to enjoy doing is when we were driving out of Illinois, driving past that huge wind turbine farm in Indiana. Yeah, I think it's in Indiana. It's just this thing. It goes for miles, and these things are just they're massive.
Yeah, depending on which way you go. I mean, that was how we always figured out. I grew up in Chicago and then spent 4 years living in Charleston, which is about 2/3 of the way downstate. It's due west of Terre Haute, Indiana, due west of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And we figured out you could tell when you'd passed from southern Illinois into northern Illinois when you stopped seeing pump jacks out in the fields for those small oil wells that are all over southern Illinois, and you started seeing those big wind farms on I-39.
Yep.
Get up to Bloomington, and north of Bloomington on I-39 is nothing but the turbines.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by that. Look, I'm not one of these criers of climate change and stuff. I do believe it's like a home. You do need to take care of your home. So I'm all for taking care of the environment, and I don't want my kids drinking polluted water, and I don't want to be breathing bad air. And
sure.
So I am for the alternative energy. It's just the problem is we have these discussions with my brother all the time, is it's not that efficient when you add up cost and everything, and you put in all the things that go along with building it out. But I do hope and pray that we get there someday, where it is cost effective, and every house has its own. So I'll tell you one thing, in Florida here, after this last hurricane that went through Hermes, we got hit pretty hard. We were in its path. We were directly affected by it. And I'm calling solar contractors right now to light up the backside of our house. That way we have an alternative energy source, because we went 3 days without power, and it was miserable. 98 degrees, 98% humidity, no air conditioning. Thank God he was taking care of us, because we just literally the day before we finished our pool in the backyard and just finished filling it up. And Sandy and I, more so me, slept in the pool. That's how we stayed warm or stayed cool. It was that bad.
Yeah.
So
preparedness is just wisdom. It's not fear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was one of these things, but I will tell you I always thought myself being a prepper. I have the food and the storage and all of that, but the air conditioning, I did not have that. We didn't have the electricity. Didn't even think about it. We had plenty of food. We definitely had plenty of water. We had all of that stuff, but we did not have the air conditioning. And at 98 degrees and 98% relative humidity, you got to have, if your body's not used to it, and not acclimated to that temperature, that humidity, you got to have the air conditioning. So my question is, like I said, we're making sure we get alternative fuel sources, and I'm starting to hear at the Norton household, I get yelled at quite a bit because I'm in a house. Well, my Sandy and all the girls are grown, but setting the temperature to 75 degrees instead of 70. I'm terraforming my house. So, yeah, so slowly and surely, we got to get back to that, to being able to live without these conveniences, because I think someday we're going to be living with without a lot of these conveniences.
You may well be right. We've had the opportunity to talk with some folks who are very much into preparedness, like Steve Quayle and Carl Gallups, Josh Tolley, and others here in recent months, and they have persuaded me of the wisdom thereof. So
yeah. Well, like for us, we had a boat, but our boat got dealing with the insurance company on that. They don't want to pay us on I don't know what it is. I mean, God sends these messages. I'm a firm believer, though, that when he sends you a message, it's for a reason. We bought a sports fisher. We were working. Thank God we didn't put the money into it to get it built up the way we wanted. But that hurricane lifted that boat. It's a 10-ton boat, 10 tons. Picked that boat up and laid it right on a piling and on the dock. And of course, it flooded, and it was the only big boat in the marina that suffered damage like that. There was a lot of boats that were floating inside. Here in Florida, for those that don't know, they actually put boats on racks here. It's the craziest thing you ever see. But they have these huge forklifts, and they lift these boats up. And, these are big boats. These are 25, 30-foot boats that they put on these racks. Well, the tide surge came in 9, 12 feet, and it lifted of course, all those boats started floating off the racks. The lower boats. These racks are three rows high. Oh, and, wow. Yeah. So those boats got banged up pretty good, but ours, we pulled it out, and we had to pull the engine. And, so now I'm dealing with the insurance company, because that was my bug out plan. If things got rough, I know I can always go out into the Gulf. And, on our boat, we have water. We can make our own water. We can make our own electricity. You got plenty. You're in the Gulf. You got plenty of food. Just throw a line overboard. And, right. If that's not good enough, you can dangle your toes in. There's a couple things that will show up. You might not want them, but they will show, if you're hungry enough, you'll definitely dangle your toes over. So, well, enough about that. Our geography lessons and everything. Got you on the show. For those that don't know, Skywatch TV, how's that going?
Well, it seems to be growing.
Yeah.
We brought in some new folks. Josh Peck, who is a host of a popular podcast called The Sharpening Report. In fact, he's gotten so busy that he's had to turn the reins of that over to a new host. But
right.
Josh is on board. We just hired another new filmmaker to take some of the editing duties off of my plate. Because I'm hosting the daily news update 4 days a week, and then Sci Friday with Sharon. I look at science from a Christian perspective every week, in addition to the regular show. But I was doing a lot of the editing of the daily updates, which takes a couple of hours a day. And so Josh Rahutsky is on board now. He's hosting a regular podcast called Seek for Truth, which is available at YouTube. And he's got a real artistic eye. I mean, I can edit the interview programs together, but when it comes to actually putting together images to tell a story, that takes a different kind of talent. And so as we look to expand beyond just doing the daily news updates, the science programming, because Josh also hosts a program called Into the Multiverse with his wife Christina, we're going to get into more documentary film. Skywatch TV released through Defender Films, which is Tom Horn's film production company, sister company to his publishing house, Defender Publishing. released a documentary about transhumanism, the transhumanist movement, last year called Inhuman, and edited together by director Gans Shimura, host of Canary Cry Radio, who did a wonderful job. The film received 2 awards in the Telly Awards, which is an annual awards program for film and video production, a silver Telly for excellence, and then a bronze Telly in the category of non-broadcast documentary, which for a first effort by folks who were kind of feeling their way along is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
But we've got, the Lord has brought together quite a talented group at Skywatch TV. Of course, the core of which is, Tom and Nita Horn and their family, because all of their kids are gifted in various areas. Joe Artis Horn does a lot of the video editing and directing, and he's got a real gift for that. Creates a lot of the trailers for the book and film projects. Donna Howell does a lot of the writing. Ellie Anderson is, basically executive who coordinates and keeps everybody on task. So, and then of course Tom, who sets the course for the whole ship. That's just a remarkable group right there. But then, when they brought us in, I've got broadcast experience that goes back to 1980.
Yeah.
So, I've been around microphones a bit. Had not done much television previously, so this was a new venture for me. I'd mostly done radio broadcast before. But Sharon, who is also a gifted writer, but also a gifted graphic designer, and she has learned graphic design and is now laying out the new monthly Skywatch magazine. So it's like the old saying: the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah,
that's kind of what the Lord has brought together here. And then you've got Josh Peck, who's got a mind that actually understands quantum physics, which is incomprehensible to me.
Yeah.
And Jake, and both of them, both of their wives, Sarah Rahutsky, Christina Peck, contributing behind the scenes in various ways.
Sure.
Christina handles all the social media. So, again, as a ministry, it's really unique in that it is creating a lot of content, most of it video, but a lot of printed content as well that is really dealing with some unique topics. Transhumanism, for one. Of course, that was the topic of the first documentary film. Next, Tom is, I can't even talk about the project, it's secret, but Tom Horn has been cutting edge, kind of blazing the trail for topics like the Nephilim and the possible return of the Nephilim, what role the Nephilim would play in prophecy. So he's been kind of cutting through the underbrush to create a trail for a lot of us who have come after for quite a while, and he's brought together people who appreciate his work, and now we're using that kind of as a launch pad. We're on broadcast television. We're on Christian television networks around the country. Several are coast-to-coast networks like the Christian Television Network, World Harvest Television, the Cornerstone Network. Yep. Down in Arkansas, we're on the Victory Television Network. So we're available on a lot of over-the-air networks and cable networks, as well as being available through Roku, and trying to take advantage of that. We're working on an Apple TV app so we can get into that, into those homes. Fire TV, we're working on that for the Amazon folks. So trying to take advantage of new technology, because ultimately that's probably the direction people are going to go. As we look at young people today, YouTube draws more 18 to 34-year-old viewers than any cable television network in America. So
yeah,
making sure that the programming is available on the web is key. Yep. But we still want to make sure that we've got places where people can find us through traditional television means as well, and and bring some of the folks who are viewers of Christian television who may not be aware of some of the topics that we cover at Skywatch TV, like again the transhumanist movement. So it seems to be going well. We're growing every month, and it's a really exciting project, exciting group to be a part of.
Yeah, and with that, obviously we're going to take a break here, but when we get back, I definitely want to let's get into the meat and potatoes of why you're here. Let's talk about some geopolitical things that you guys are seeing, that you guys have reported on. And for our listeners, get out to Skywatch TV. I watch it. I love it. It's a great source of Christian broadcasting, Christian news, and current events. But you're with our very special guest, Derek P. Gilbert, is joining us. He is the host of an anchor and an analyst of Skywatch TV and also PID Radio, one of the earliest internet radio programs.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
everybody. Welcome to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us live here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web 24/7. That's right. We're working around the clock. We've employed the best gerbils that money can buy. Here, hey, only the best for our listeners. But that's at themidnightocean.com. And I hope I didn't offend anybody with the gerbil comment. And if I did, I apologize ahead of time. But there's no apologies that we have to give out for our guests on the phone, on the Skype line. Derek P. Gilbert. Man, Skype, Derek, you've been in radio for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Skype has just revolutionized it, has it not?
It did. In fact, I was able to use it 10 years ago. I had a short stint at a talk radio station in mid-Missouri in Columbia, and was able to use it then to record interviews that sounded broadcast quality. If a guest was available, but not during the time I needed him to be available, like during my show, I was able to use it to record, and it really was a great help.
Yeah, I'm working with Tele. I mean, right now we're looking, and I promise everybody we're not going to stay in the podcast, but I think it's important that people understand, especially we have a lot of listeners who are fellow podcasters as well. And, you start out like everybody does with the sound mixer, if it's from Radio Shack or, well, they're out of business now, but the small mixer, the microphone, the whatever. And, the simple connection to the internet, and then you start building on that. And now we're actually not negotiating. There's no negotiating with Telos, but we're working with Telos. We're switching out our mixer. We're adding. They have that new hybrid phone system that integrates VoIP and also Skype and everything. It's all digital quality, and so we're in the process of upgrading the game here in the studios. But like everything. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's I looked at one of my daughters, said, what one doesn't want to go to college? The oldest one's like, I'm already in college, Dad. So it's like, oh, thanks. But no, it's, and I do, and I know our listeners did not tune in to hear that. So let's jump right into the fray, my friend. All right. Gio Paulette, what do you see? What's going on in the world today?
Well, it's a big question. Depends on where you want to look. I mean, Americans are pretty much wrapped up in the Donald-Hillary race right now. But, I suspect after long years of watching it that whoever sits in the White House is not really running the show. They're just sort of the figurehead who takes the credit and takes the blame and pays a heavy price for that. But they are essentially just middle management, them and the folks in Congress, for the people who really run the show. Although it is interesting watching the reaction of the sort of foreign policy cartel to Donald Trump and his statements over the past several months. The fact that the neocons have abandoned the Republican Party, or many of them, for Hillary Clinton, says a lot about where their true priorities are, and it's not America first. Let's put it that way. Yeah. In the Middle East, you're looking at a mess that is in large part the fault of the United States. And I'm not one of these guys that automatically rejects everything that I hear out of a politician's mouth. You got to weigh it and test it. I mean, there are some folks who refuse to believe anything they hear in the media. Yeah. And you can go too far in that direction. I mean, that way lies madness. But with anything that you hear or read or see in the major media, you have to ask, okay, who benefits from me reading this story and taking it at face value? When Hillary began talking about her foreign policy experience last night during the debate, for example, I really, really wanted Mr. Trump to go even harder in the direction that he did. I mean, he made reference to Libya as a failed state, but it is no longer a secret. It is a matter of public record, thanks to the folks at the Judicial Watch, the government watchdog group that gets a lot of documents by Freedom of Information Act requests and lawsuits, that the Defense Intelligence Agency back in 2012 August of 2012, was telling the White House to quit shipping weapons from Libya to the rebels in Syria because we were on the verge of creating an independent Islamic state, and use those words, in Libya and Syria that would destabilize both nations. And that's exactly what happened. And the reason that our ambassador, Chris Stevens, was in Benghazi on September 11th of 2013 was because he was there, or 2012, I believe it was. I've forgotten the year. I know it was September 11th, 2012, I think, he was facilitating weapons transfers.
Correct.
As best, and of course, this is according to the investigative journalist Seymour Hersh. So we've created a big part of the mess that is now plaguing the Middle East. But I think it goes even beyond the Islamic State. When you look back over the last 15 years and think about that, we've had soldiers in country in Afghanistan for 15 years, 13 years in Iraq. It only took 4 years to take down the Fourth Reich, okay, or the Third Reich. There are some who'd argue that the Fourth Reich is underground and just waiting for its chance to really go public right now. The underground Reich, yeah.
Well, Jim Morris thinks that the Fourth Reich is actually the ones that we're talking about. yeah, and there's a good case to be made for that. But when you look at the disaster that Iraq has become since we invaded in 2003, and recognize that there are some very wise men, one who's become a friend, Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, who openly says that during the debates in the White House and in the Pentagon back in 2003 about whether or not to go into Iraq, he was against it because while Saddam Hussein was most definitely a brutal man, a dictator, he was holding all those pieces together. I mean, if you read a little bit of history, you'll see that is a part of the world where tribal groups, factions, and sects have been killing each other since 2,500 years before Abraham walked the earth. Yeah.
And the only way you get a country to, and Iraq was not the only one, but the only way you get a country in that part of the world to hold together relatively peacefully is for a dictator, a strongman, to take charge and take control. Which is why Libya was peaceful until Gaddafi was killed. It's why Iraq was more or less peaceful until Saddam was taken out of the way. It's why Egypt began to fall apart as soon as Mubarak was removed, until the army stepped in and took over. That's just a part of the world where that's the only way you keep the peace. The only nation that's close to a democracy in that part of the world really is Israel.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the neocons thought that we could somehow back one of the factions in Syria and come out with something like a stable government. And it's looking back on it with 2020 hindsight, it's remarkable that anybody thought that way. But there were men and women inside the government who foresaw this, and they were shouted down. They were overruled by the Bush administration back in 2001, 2002, 2003. And so now we've got to figure out what to do with the pieces. The Islamic State, contrary to what progressives say, is not misrepresenting Islam. It is not hijacking Islam. It is a purer form of Islam, and that's something that we have to understand if we're going to contend with this. It is living out the Islam as it was preached and lived by Muhammad in the 7th century.
Yes. And I think let's go back to that real quick, because I think people need to hear this, because what we're being told in mainstream media now, I don't believe it, because I pick up a book and I read and I talk to experts like yourself. We're hearing, radical Islam. This is radical. No. This is Islam. This is these guys are following what was written in what Muhammad said to do, especially with non-believers.
Radical Islam is a misnomer, and I find myself using it just because it's been indoctrinated into us by repetition by the mainstream media. But no, the correct term would be violent Islam, which is mainstream Islam, as it's lived out by the Islamic State. And we've got a foreign policy there that the CEO of an intelligence service that we subscribe to, it's, Stratfor, anybody can subscribe to it, so it's not like a secret source or anything. But he very, I thought, diplomatically said that this administration's policy in Syria borders on the incomprehensible. I think I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist. And I think that's a very nice way of putting it, because when you look at the fact that we are going after the Islamic State, we're supplying weapons to so-called moderate rebels in Syria, Arabs, but also supplying weapons to the only consistently effective fighting force in Syria and Iraq, the Kurds. And the fact is that the Arabs and the Kurds and the Turks, who are also our allies, essentially all hate each other. And we're trying to mount an offensive. I mean, we saw this just over a week ago when special ops troops, U.S. Special Forces, helped the Turks in what they called Operation Euphrates Shield, where they moved across the Turkish border, basically invaded northern Syria, and drove the Islamic State out of a town called Jarablus, which is on the Euphrates River right at the Turkish border. Now, I presume that our Spec Ops troops were wearing sneakers or high heels or something, because the president promised us no boots on the ground. So I'll take him at his word. If there's no boots on the ground, our soldiers were wearing something other than boots, because there are definitely American soldiers fighting in Syria right now. But they were, I won't say they were run out of Jarablus. I have more respect for our Special Ops troops than that. They withdrew to prevent a confrontation with the Syrian rebels, who were very angry at our support for the Kurds. Now, I think if push had come to shove, the Syrian rebels would have been very sorry that they had provoked a fight with U.S. Special Forces troops.
Well, they were ordered. I mean, let's face it. I mean, because I know guys these guys are not going to back down. They were ordered back. Right. I mean, they follow. The one thing they do very well is follow orders. The chain of command is everything to these guys.
But the point is, the Turks are our allies, and so we followed them in, helped them clean out, and so are these Arab Syrian rebels are supposedly our allies, and yet the Syrian rebels are calling our guys infidels, dogs, and crusaders because of our support for the Kurds. And we're backing the Kurds and wanting the Kurds to fight the Islamic State, but our other goal in Syria is to take down Bashar al-Assad, remove him from power, and yet the Kurds have no interest in removing Bashar al-Assad from power, because while Assad, an Alawite, is in control and he can cobble together a coalition that includes the minority groups in Syria to basically give them enough clout to withstand to offset the power of the majority Sunnis, which the Islamic State are. Yeah. You've got Alawites, you've got Druze, you've got Christians, you've got a few other groups, a few Shia and so forth. By banding together and supporting the existing government of Assad, they basically keep the Sunnis from killing them. The same was true in Iraq, where the Sunnis are a minority against the Shia majority. Saddam was a Sunni, and by banding together with the Christians and the Kurds, while as long as the Kurds were willing to cooperate with them, they kept the majority Shia from killing them. But by taking Saddam out of the question, well, look, there were 2 million Christians in Iraq when we invaded in March of 2003. There are now, by some estimates, as few as 125,000 Christians left.
Yeah.
The rest are dead or they ran away.
Yeah.
And that mostly happened while American soldiers were in country in Iraq. So we can't blame this on anyone
but ourselves.
But us. But it's not the fault of the American soldiers, because we didn't go over there to keep them from killing each other. We went there to, we thought, create a representative republic. But that's a part of the world that has never known a representative republic. And again, smart people inside the Pentagon and inside the State Department knew this 15 years ago, but they could not persuade the neocons who had control of foreign policy. So we have a mess there, and I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. My thought is that Donald Trump was on the right track when he says, maybe we talk to the Russians, because the Russians have an Islamic problem, because some of the republics that are part of Russia, like Chechnya, have a lot of angry Muslims. Yep. They fought a long war against Chechnya. Chechnya tried to get its become independent and fought a long and brutal war against Russia.
Yeah.
So, that's something Vladimir Putin understands. We have a mutual interest there in containing violent Islam.
Sure. Well, I actually think the whole reason why this, let's go further. I mean, my theories is the whole reason why we're trying to grab hold of that area, because Assad is secular. I mean, he ran a secular government. Mm-hmm. And then you got the House Assad coming in and saying, hey, look, we need to run these gas pipelines through Syria, and, lapdog United States go in there and take care of it because, the agreements that you made with us that you're going to basically be our dogs when we need you. And I think the reason why a lot of the policy excludes Russia is because a lot of the reason why we are there is to affect Russia in essence. So they don't want to, they don't want to bring in the guy that the New World Order is trying to bring down.
You're absolutely right. It is not a coincidence that the Saudis and their allies in Qatar want to run natural gas pipelines from the west side of the Persian Gulf. There's a huge gas field up through Iraq, through Syria, and onto Europe, where they want to cut into Russia's share of the European natural gas market, which is huge because there are parts of Europe that get really, really cold in the wintertime, global warming notwithstanding. And they want a piece of that. And of course, American policymakers cutting into Russia's status as a geopolitical powerhouse because of its natural resources would be a good thing. That's why Saudi Arabia turned on the taps on the oil wells a couple of years ago, drove the price of oil down to $40 a barrel or thereabouts, which basically put a spike in the American shale market in southern Illinois, the area to which I was selling steel before coming to work for Skywatch TV. They were talking about an oil boom like they were having in western North Dakota because the geology of southern Illinois is very much like western North Dakota, where there could be, as potentially in the shale under the ground there and in North Dakota, 3 times the proven reserves of Saudi Arabia or more, but it's more expensive to produce.
Yep.
It's only profitable at $80 a barrel or above. So the Saudis drive the price down, drive the producers out of work, out of the market. That boom never materialized in Illinois, and now North Dakota, which basically couldn't build houses fast enough for roughnecks and geological engineers, now suddenly is going to have a lot of empty homes, empty apartments. Even the shale fields in Texas are struggling now.
Yeah.
It's all about going after Russia. But Assad wouldn't play ball. He wanted to run the pipelines from Iran on the east side of the Persian Gulf, same field, just drawing from the different side of the Persian Gulf, and send it from Iran through Syria, and then getting Russia involved in the deal.
Yeah.
It's all about. And I hate to sound like a typical Bush hater, where you remember back in 03, 04, it's all about the oil. It's all about the oil. Well, it may be. But certainly, what's going on in Syria right now is definitely all about the natural gas.
Yeah, no, it's about the oil. It's about the lithium deposits. It's, the precious metals, the rare earth metals that are out there. So it's a mess. And like I said, you hear these reports of how barbaric Assad is, and I just don't at this point. I don't believe any of them. I really don't. I saw a special that PBS did. The PBS, the voice for the propaganda voice for America, where they went there and they talked about the lifestyle and the living and everything and in Syria. And to me, it seemed like a beautiful country. It seemed they're very secular. I mean, they didn't one religion over the other. And of course now we've blown it up. Now you've got, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's baffling because you hear about him barrel bombing the people. I don't know how much of that is propaganda, because you have ISIS here, you have different organizations that are already proven that they'll do whatever they want to do. And even the chemical attack that Assad was accused of doing, I think the evidence now is pointing to the fact that that was actually rebels.
Yeah, well, UN officials said so even before that year was over. Yeah. And, I'm not a fan of President Obama, but I will give him credit for resisting the calls from within his own administration to go to war against Syria. Sadly, we're seeing more calls now where we've got guys inside the Pentagon, generals inside the Pentagon, saying, well, we need to establish a no-fly zone over Syria, which means only U.S. and coalition planes over Syria, which means we'd basically have to shoot down the Syrian and Russian planes that are over Syria. Yes. And it just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Does the blood of other people's children mean so little to these people?
Yeah.
Apparently it does.
Yeah, and that's the point. Actually, I had that conversation with a family member just the other day. It's like, you don't understand. At the end of the day, the politicians walk home and they go home. It's the kids and it's everybody else that suffers from these guys.
Right. And it's really tragic because I've been doing a lot of reading lately on ancient cosmology, the religious beliefs of the ancient Mesopotamians, Sumerians, Canaanites, and the people who lived in that region. So we're talking about the regions of the world: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, southern Turkey, that basically created. I mean, that was the ground from which the world of the Bible emerged.
Mm-hmm.
And the archaeological finds that are still under the ground there, for example, Aleppo, which is still in Arabic called by its ancient name Halab, was the site of a very powerful kingdom about the time of Abraham, about this, beginning of the second millennium BC, called Yamkad. And I'm just learning about this now, so I'm no expert, believe me, but it was a powerful kingdom that lasted for hundreds of years, and we don't know much about it because the city of Aleppo has been continuously occupied since then. So we're talking about a city there, of a city of 2 million people before this civil war started, where people have lived continuously for more than 4,000 years. And there have been other places where we've found these treasure troves of ancient documents, ancient tablets that tell us about the ancient world and help shed light on the biblical world, like Ugarit, which was a city-state on the Syrian coast on the Mediterranean, where back in the 1920s they found a bunch of tablets, and it helped to decipher ancient Hebrew, and also it's really put a lot of what's in the Bible into context. But there are ancient city-states like this Yamkad that was really powerful, around the time of the old Babylonian Empire, and we don't know much about it because all of their records are still beneath the ground there.
Yeah.
But after this war, I mean, if you've seen pictures of Aleppo and what is going on with the citizens there, we may never find what is beneath the ground there because there won't be anything left.
Yeah.
Damascus is another. There are sites in Iraq where, in my opinion, some of the sites in southeast Iraq, which was the location of ancient Sumer, where some of those cities, I think, are far more important to our theology today than we realize. In fact, I'm working on a book about that. We'll touch on it, and got an idea for another book after that. I just need to actually get disciplined enough to start generating word count. But it's so dangerous for archaeologists to go there now that even though they know where the sites are and they could dig, it's just too dangerous because you got the Islamic State roaming around there, which again was a creation of the U.S. and our allies in our misguided attempt to drive Assad out of power so we could run some natural gas pipelines for our friends the Saudis.
Yeah. I've always said, and I get in trouble for this all the time, ISIS is USIS. And, we started it. We funded them. We started them. We armed them and everything. But with that, obviously with the music, that means we got another break. Hey, Derek, let's take this break, finish up on the geopolitical, and let's get into transhumanism, some of the things that are going on there. So We're with our very special guest, Derek Gilbert. He's the anchor analyst. He's so much more than an anchor and analyst for Skywatch TV. Get out there, skywatchtv.com. Great thing. And he's also an internet radio show of A View from a Bunker and PID Radio. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. When we get back, we're going to finish up this conversation on geopolitics, and we're going to move into transhumanism.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. I'd like to welcome everybody. You can join us here every Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web 24/7 at www.themidnightocean.com. If you guys are joining us here for the very first time on YouTube, it is very, very important that you click that subscribe button. Let me tell you why. That's how we communicate to you that we have a new show, and also our guests. The other thing, too, is that we are working with our social media group, who is working with me. I should say we is me. And we're finding a way that we can communicate to you directly if you subscribe to us. Kind of like a little special group. Yeah, it's not a secret society. There's no secret handshakes or passwords or wherever to get in the door. But if you are a subscriber to our feed, we can actually send very special messages and content to you. And we're also working with our guests to put those things together. So only those that subscribe to our channel have access to that information. But a little bit more of that later. And if you are on Facebook, of course, you can always type in the Midnight Ocean. Also join us as Midnight Listeners. If you type in Midnight Listeners, all one word. We only have a limited amount of time with our very special guest who is joining us live from Skype. Using Skype is Derek Gilbert, who is the anchor analyst of Skywatch TV. Right before we went off the break, Derek, we were talking about some of the geopolitical, what's going on in Syria, things of that nature. In the perfect world, I always get asked this question, so I'm just going to punt and ask you, in the perfect world, what do we need to do in the United States? What do our officials just need to do?
Well, I think they need to, first and foremost, treat the American taxpayer, the American voter, as their true constituency. It's pretty clear that the actual constituency served by our representatives are the folks who actually pay for the campaigns, the lobbyists and special interest groups that they're really the ones that are being served, the ones who wield the influence in Washington, D.C. That, I think, would go a long way toward fixing what we're doing here. I think the other thing is just focusing on foreign policy that it relates to what policies are best for the people, the citizens of the United States, and not adopt a foreign policy that is like it's like it's crafted by a drunken college student playing a game of double board Risk. It's the adventures that we have sent our military on over the past couple of decades, and one could argue, ever since the end of World War II, really, have more to do with extending influence for the elites and the globalists than it does for the average people of the United States. Now, will that ever happen? I'm skeptical, but history tends to repeat itself, and if you go back and read and study Roman history, the history of the Roman Empire, actually about the time of the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. We're about at that point right now. It was a surprise to me in reading about the adventures of the Roman military in the couple centuries before and after the birth of Jesus Christ, that Roman senators were advocating for war with some of their neighbors for some of the same flimsy reasons that the United States has gone to war. And we need to go to war with Pontus because they're bad, and besides, they've got that really nice spice concession that Senator so-and-so wants to get. And the Parthians, we need to go, teach those Parthians a lesson because they're bad and stuff. And the average legionnaire, he was serving because maybe he was very patriotic Roman, and Roman citizens were whipped up into a frenzy by the official propaganda from the Senate, and so they went along with it. And when you listen and you step back and you look and you can see the parallels, the same things repeating themselves a couple thousand years later. And we're not the only ones that have been guilty of this. This has been something that has been done in nations and empires throughout history. And it's just because we humans in general are in a fallen, sinful state, and we tend to want stuff for ourselves at the expense of everybody else. That's our default setting. So will we ever get to that perfect world where the government really represents we the people? I'm skeptical. While I am supportive and agree with many of the positions that Donald Trump has taken, and Ron Paul before him, I just have to step back and kind of shake my head at the people who are convinced that Mr. Trump will fix everything, just like the people before were convinced that Ron Paul would fix everything if he just could be elected president. It's not going to happen, because there are people that are behind the scenes whose names we never know, who are wielding a lot of the power that most people think the president really controls. So as a Christian, I look at it this way, and sometimes it's hard to do because it's easy to get caught up in the circus, especially when the media is really feeding on it because they need clicks, they need eyeballs, they need to sell ads.
Yep.
I mean, the product that the media companies that are feeding on this are selling is not news coverage. They're not selling news coverage to us. They're selling us to their advertisers. We are the product, and they have to draw us in and get our eyeballs on their screen, on their ads, by any means necessary. And so they packaged the debate last night like it's playoff football or playoff basketball.
Yeah.
We Christians need to step back and stop looking at it that way, because our salvation will not come through the White House. We are not going to elect Jesus to the White House or get him appointed to the Supreme Court. Regardless of who sits in the Oval Office next January as the 45th President of the United States, we Christians still have a mission out there, which is to make disciples of all nations. And if we get too caught up in and I understand that the political situation of our country affects our ability to do that, affects our ability to raise our families, our children, our grandchildren. I understand all that. But our main mission as Christians is to make disciples of all nations, and we can do that regardless of whoever is in the White House.
Yeah.
Maybe more difficult if one side is in the versus the other, but still, that's what we need to look at. And we should be focusing on how we are living out our faith, because for a lot of people around us, we are the only gospel that they will know. And if we are fixated on the political game, our eyes have been taken off the real goal. And that's what the enemy wants. And by the enemy, I don't mean a particular political party. I'm talking principalities and powers, the rulers of spiritual wickedness in high places, the spiritual entities that the Apostle Paul was writing about, who want to kill you and your family. That's our real enemy, not the humans who are voting for the other party.
Yeah. And
it's so easy to get caught up in that trap because I do it, every now and then. Sharon just very gently has to nudge me in the ribs and say, hey, you do know that this political process is just a game, right?
Yeah. It's a distraction.
It is a distraction.
Yeah. No, and the way that I kind of reconcile with my head is, I use the parable that's in the Bible, render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God. So this politic, this is Caesar. This is politics. So yeah, okay, play the game, but at the end of the day, you're still a Christian. You still have to answer to God. So what are you doing? What are you rendering to God? Mm-hmm. And that's that. Yeah, I get it. I used to before doing these shows, I did highly charged political podcasts. I wasn't so extreme as some of them out there. But I was pretty intense, and I realized that I was feeding into that distraction. I was bringing people into the distraction, and didn't realize that. And that's why I backed away and started to do these shows. And I'm finding out that instead of I'm pulling people away from the distraction. And that's my goal. Is I've always said the goal of this type of topic, the type of topics I do, is to bring non-mainstream ideas to the mainstream. In other words, I'm competing with the distraction out there. I'm trying to pull people away, and also in the meantime give them a message of hope and peace. And there is something out there greater than ourselves, and greater than these politicians and these musicians and these actors and actresses that we so adorn and worship. There's other concepts, and we need to start exploring those.
No, absolutely right. That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah. And you know what? And it works. It worked. And we've been blessed. I'll be the first one to tell you. Our show has, in a short month and a half, we're growing by leaps and bounds, and we're meeting all of our goals, all of our business models. And you've been in the business long enough to know that it's hard to get a show off the ground, and it's hard to. I'm just amazed at our guests that we get, guys like you. We're gonna have L.A. Missouri. I can never pronounce his last name. L.A. Missouri. He's going to be on the show. We had Dr. Judd Atkins. On the show. The guys that we have are just, I'm going to have Jonathan Young on the show. We have Dr. Michael Heiser was on the show last week. It's just, it's incredible the quality of the guests. And like I said, those are all given to us, not because of any special words or endorsement. A lot of people wonder if we pay for our guests. No, we don't. We reach out to our guests like yourself through email and through other contacts and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Are you interested? And I've had one guest turn me down, and I'm glad he did, to be honest with you. I don't know how his name got into the list anyway. So it worked out as well. So it's amazing. It is amazing. And like I said, I give unto Caesar what belongs to him, and what am I doing for God this day?
Right, exactly.
And that's and this is, and I know a lot of people are out there because we do deal with some esoteric situation, but I have not yet heard, even my Christian guests such as yourself, and no one is denying the other esoteric topics that we talk about on the show, which is amazing. You would think that they would be in conflict with each other, but actually, no, they support each other. And that's what's really, really neat about doing these types of shows. I do want to switch it up because I know that we're on a very limited amount of time with you. I want to get into this thing called transhumanism. Can you just explain, what was that? I can't remember the show where they said, talk to me like a 5-year-old. Can you just explain to me what transhumanism is?
It is a belief that immortality will come only through technology, basically. It is essentially a religion that trusts in technology for salvation. It is held mainly, but not exclusively, by atheists, people whose worldview excludes the supernatural realm, which, if you start from that premise, their worldview makes a lot of sense. If you believe that everything for you ceases to be after your last breath, then trying to extend the amount of time you have makes all the sense in the world, even by any means necessary. And there are some who are willing to go that far and say that, death should be optional. And if you are trying to stop me from pursuing the goal of living forever and becoming omnipotent, then you are condemning me to death, and I have the right to defend myself, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Yeah. So that is the fundamental difference between a Christian worldview and the transhumanist worldview. The transhumanist believes that death is the end of all things. It is the end, period. There is nothing after death. Whereas Christians say, well, no, look, we're all immortal. The only question you really need to concern yourself with is where you're going to spend the rest of eternity once you shed this flawed, frail biological shell. So the transhumanists have, over the last couple decades, been growing in influence. It sounds to some like it's a science fiction, like a crazy science fiction fantasy. But when you start telling people who is behind this movement and who some of the influential players in this movement are, they sit up and take notice. Probably the leading light in this movement, certainly the best known, is Dr. Raymond Kurzweil, who is considered the greatest inventor in the United States, or one of the greatest anyway, of the last generation or so. He's invented many things that are were groundbreaking. Yeah, he really invented the synthesizer in music. The Kurzweil synthesizer was his creation. He's also come up with a number of other things that are were cutting edge. He's a futurist with a really remarkable track record for predicting things like, for example, the fall of the Berlin Wall years before it happened. But he appears to be driven by a profound sense of grief. His father passed away when he was fairly young. His father wasn't much older than I am now. I think he was like 56, 57. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's right. And Dr. Kurzweil was still a young man. He has preserved all of his father's, and his father apparently was a very gifted musician, a symphony conductor, if I remember correctly. And Dr. Kurzweil has preserved all of his father's personal effects, his papers, his photographs, his musical scores, his just everything that is a remembrance of his father has been saved and collected. And Dr. Kurzweil has stated publicly, in fact, this is in a documentary film, if I remember correctly, called Transcendent Man, about Dr. Kurzweil and his drive to achieve immortality, where he says openly that his goal, when the technology has advanced far enough, is to exhume his father's body, clone his father, and then program this clone with all of the things that he has saved from his father's personal effects, his father's estate. And when you recognize, first of all, that Dr. Kurzweil is a very productive, rational, highly intelligent man, you can't just discount this as the ravings of a lunatic. Yeah. When you consider that his father passed away about 40 years ago, I mean, it strikes you that this is really sad. Dr. Kurzweil's not an evil man. He's not a bad man. But he is convinced that the only way he'll ever see his father again is to create a new one from his father's personal belongings and whatever DNA he can exhume from the ground and extract from his father's corpse. That's tragic, in my view. But there are those who have followed his work and are convinced that Dr. Kurzweil is on the right track, that we humans are nothing more than biological machines. And that as machines, if you begin with that assumption that we are nothing more than biological machines, organic machines, that we can replace all of our parts, just as, sure as we replace a knee or, an artificial limb. We should be able to replace all of these biological parts that wear out, that, through cellular degeneration over time, we age, we weaken, and we finally die. But if we could replace all of those parts that fail with bionics, with electronics, with, a power source that never runs out, perhaps we can, the mind is nothing more than a computer, and we can somehow copy the patterns of the human mind. And this is why they're trying to map the human mind. They want to figure out how to copy thoughts and memories and then program them into an artificial copy of the human brain. Whether this can be done or not, and there are some very intelligent researchers working in the fields of cognitive science neural networks, artificial intelligence research, who don't believe this can be done, that Dr. Kurzweil and others like him are way off base and way too optimistic that this can even be done. The skeptics who point that out, we as Christians need to step back and say, that's not the point. The point is not whether this can ever be achieved, whether they can ever create an artificial brain or an artificial human. The point is they're convincing our children and our grandchildren who are coming out of the crib with an iPad in one hand and a smartphone in the other, who see the miracles of technology with their eyes every day and see the rapid advance of technology. According to Dr. Kurzweil's estimates, we're going to see something like the equivalent of 20,000 years of technological progress over the next century. Because as we've gotten more and as technology over the last couple hundred years has built upon previous advances, it's no longer a linear line. It is an algorithmic curve, and we're almost at a vertical climb right now. If you're graphing the rate of technological progress, kids are more likely to believe that their ultimate life is as an enhanced human than to believe in the dusty words, the words of a dusty book that their parents have probably never even read. And I'm talking about the Bible. Again, we as Christians, we understand that we are all going to live forever. We just have to place our faith in Jesus Christ, that he has gone on before us to build a home. Because in his Father's mansion, there are many mansions in his Father's house, and he's preparing them for us. I believe that, and I've got good, I think, reasons for believing that. The historical testimony, the eyewitness testimony of the witnesses who saw the resurrected Jesus Christ. But how many parents teach that to their kids? How many parents even understand Christian apologetics, know why they believe what they say they believe, when their kids are seeing with their own eyes the miracle of modern technology?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, because they get away from the magic of Christ or Jesus, and they're caught up, like you said, in Pokemon. I mean, that's a great example. And now it's only a matter of time. Well, now you have virtual reality in the sense of you can download a haunted app that will now take your house and turn it into a haunted house. Mm-hmm. It's like, so we're getting into these alternative universes. Going back to the transhuman, one of the things that concerns me is a practice that's going on right now. Here you go. You got David Rockefeller. 8 or 6 heart transplants?
Wow.
I mean, he's up to his 6th. David Rockefeller's up to his 6th heart transplant at 99 years old. Now, granted, he's not trying to plug into a computer or do a mind dump, but that's what these elites do, is that they continue, they perpetual, it's nonstop for these guys. They're not, when you have unlimited resources, unlimited money, you absolutely have unlimited resources. These are 6 heart transplants. I think 1 would have been good enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure that story is accurate. I'm doing some checking on that right now. But
David Rockefeller's? No, World News Daily.
World News Daily Report, which is a parody site.
Oh, so Snoops. Oh, there we go. All right, so maybe I got sucked in. It's like The Onion. There are a lot of sites out there that are like that aren't funny enough to be obvious parody, and the stories are just plausible enough to be true. But you raise a good point. There are people like that. In fact, I've done a couple of interviews recently with the producer and the director of a film called Hard to Believe, which is about organ transplant tourism to China, where the government of China is using political prisoners as raw material to serve these wealthy Western tourists. It's a source of revenue for the Chinese government, raising, I did some rough math. It was hundreds of millions or the low billions per year at 150,000 estimated prisoners that are live harvested per year. Yeah.
So there are those like Mr. Rockefeller who are using their position of wealth to try to extend their lives. And that's the point. We humans are so afraid of death and so unwilling to trust in the promises given to us by God that we are going to trust in technology, whether it's organ transplant or then eventually the merger of our biology with technology so that we can live forever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Steve Jobs went to China. That's where he got his liver.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's the powerful elite who are harvesting, I mean, there's definitely a black market for organs, in certain countries. They have realized how to profit from them. So, Derek, I've got actually, we kind of blew through our break here. So let's take a few minutes. We'll take a few minutes breaks. We'll come back from the break and then we'll wrap this conversation up because I know you have other commitments and I don't want to keep you from those. And, I want to be a gracious host, my friend.
Appreciate it.
All right. So we're talking with our good friend, Derek Gilbert, Skywatch TV, anchor host. But we'll take a few minutes break, and when we get back, we'll wrap this conversation up. We'll find out what is in the works. I think you guys, if you were listening to the beginning of the show, you know that they are growing, and maybe we can get some inside information on their growth, where they're going, what they're doing. Be back in a few.
Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right. You're listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and a podcast as we cruise on into the evening. Here's a little tidbit for you. Steve Jobs' final words hours earlier were monosyllables, repeated 3 times. Before embarking, he looked at his sister Patty, then for a long time at his children, then at his life's partner Lorene, and then over their shoulders past them. Steve's final words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." And that was actually taken from the October 30th, 2011 New York Times eulogy by his sister, Mona Simpson. Wonder what he was looking at. Wonder what he was thinking. You know, for all those that don't know, Steve Jobs, and pretty much can assume this, was an atheist. He was a Zen Buddhist and did not believe in Jesus Christ and his salvation. So you wonder, you have to ask yourself, what was he thinking, or what did he see there at the end? Like I said, and this actually came from an account from his sister, Mona Simpson, in her eulogy to him, said that he looked at his sister Patty before embarking. He looked at his sister Patty, then for a long time at his children and his life partner Lorraine, and over the shoulders, and then he looked over their shoulders and past them and said, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." Wow. I'm wondering. I don't know. I don't know, Gilbert. Derek, I should say.
I had a 7th grade teacher that got that wrong a whole year, or a whole semester anyway. Gilbert, Eric.
Yeah, sorry.
Whatever.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's getting late. I haven't had my Tim Hortons coffee. Enough of it. I've only had a couple sips from it during the show because you have kept me just enthralled in the conversation.
Oh, you're too kind.
I'm learning so much, and I'm going, so the big distraction right now for me, the biggest challenge as a broadcaster is not get distracted. And because you do lose train of thought, or I do at least. And I'm at Sky TV and I'm reading as you're talking, your website. And for those listeners out there, get out to Skywatch TV. That's Skywatch TV, as I just said it. I'm not going to spell it out for you. You guys can put it in the Googler if you can't spell .com and take a look at this. It's a phenomenal site. You have amassed a pretty pretty decent team there, my friend.
Well, that's the Lord and Tom Horn, and it is our goal to make Tom Horn look as smart as we possibly can.
So who actually started? Was it Tom that started Skywatch TV?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This was a project that he had in mind for a while, and after the prophecy conference in Colorado Springs in 2014, I had been working as an outside sales rep for about 3 years at that point. Had been working for that particular company for about 6 years. Great company, one of the best I'd ever worked for. One of the 3 best I'd ever worked for. But they treated us very well, appreciated the work that I did. So it was nothing against them, but I just felt like I was supposed to be doing something else. Sharon and I, and I do want to mention this because we the podcasts are. View from the Bunker, PID Radio. We enjoy doing those, and I think we bring some important content out there. But the thing that we do together that we enjoy the best, well, 2 things really. Sci Friday, which is the weekly look at the science, which really draws on her strengths. I just sit there and ask questions and try not to,
stay out of the way,
look too lost. While she shows it every week why my dad kept telling me, "Son, you married up," and then on Sunday mornings, we produce 2 Bible studies. We call it the Gilbert House Fellowship because we kept hearing from people that at conferences that we can't find a church that's going through the Bible line by line and teaching what is in the Bible. And neither one of us are Bible scholars. We don't pretend to be, but we read, we put some study in, and we try to show people that if you just read and try to look at it, as Dr. Michael Heiser will say, from the mindset, the worldview of those who were inspired by the Holy Spirit to write the Bible back in the day, you'll have a much deeper understanding of what God is trying to communicate to us. And so we do that. We're reading through the Bible Old Testament and New Testament. We do an hour on each week, and we're reading through it in chronological order. We found a chronological reading plan, which is really interesting, because when you get to, say, the life of David, you juxtapose the books of history, First Chronicles, First and Second Samuel, with the Psalms. And so you understand better what was in his heart when he was writing the Psalms, because you reading them right after reading about how he had to run away from Saul again, or whatever. And in the New Testament, you're reading the Gospels. You read the Matthew account of an incident, then you read the account in John, and then the account in Mark, and compare and contrast. And now we're reading in the New Testament the book of Acts against the letters of Paul. So we're getting an idea of what's in Paul's mind as he's writing to the church at Corinth after he just had after he spent 18 months there planting the church. It's really interesting, and that we're getting so much out of that. And I would say that when we started down this road 11 years ago with PID Radio, that I wouldn't have guessed that the thing that we do each week that really is the most fulfilling for us is that weekly study. And that's online at gilberthouse.org. It's, the archives are free. We just moved servers, and I'm realizing now we're using up a lot more bandwidth on the new hosting company than I figured. So I'm going to have to figure out another place to put the audio files. But anyway, that's for another day.
Can I make a recommendation? If you're SoundCloud, they have the unlimited. I mean, we do a 4-hour show, and we put all of our audio every day. So 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. We put it up on SoundCloud, and they charge us, I want to say it's like $19 a month.
That's cheap.
Yes, it is very cheap. And, one of the things I'm trying to do is I do promise I'm going to put together a how-to for podcasters. That's why we will never charge for our show. You have a lot of people that are in this business as they grow and as their listenership grows, they go to that subscription-based system. And the reason why they do that is because they have to pay, the bandwidth. And so it's SoundCloud Pro. And with SoundCloud Pro, let me look. I'm just going to, if I can help you, that would be $15 a month.
Yeah, that's really reasonable.
So it's $15 a month. And like I said, we put 4-hour shows. These things are about, each one of our shows is about 350 megs of audio, because we put it out there at 128K. And, I loved them. I've used them for years.
We're close to burning through a terabyte of bandwidth here in about 15 days on the new hosting company. So, we're going to need to do something here pretty quick. So.
Yeah, see, they'll love you for that, because to them, that's eyeballs. That's people. And now I will have to tell you is that when people come to listen to your stuff on SoundCloud, they're presented with other things. But they do a pretty good job, though, at keeping it within your genre, as long as you tag everything effectively and stuff. They don't, you're not going to get, like with us, we get other paranormal shows that kind of show up with our stuff, which is fine, but you're not going to get like Satanists or anything like that. I mean, they're going to keep it. Well, that is a concern, though. I mean, it should be a concern. YouTube is notorious for that. Is that they, you go to one of our shows, and then you'll see other. I had someone tell me the other day that when they bring up my show, it brings up all the shows from the Jesuits, all the Jesuits teachings and stuff. But I'm like, why? Well, we did a show with Lee Origami, which we talked about the Jesuits infiltrating the Masonic lodges and everything. So maybe that's what it is. When they decided to do their keyword ranking on us and stuff, that was the show that they decided to use. But SoundCloud. All of our shows are out there. Charges $15 a month, and they've never balked at it. And it's unlimited. It's unlimited storage as well. So
I will get on that first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Take a look at them. I mean, I highly recommend it. And the other thing too is if you need a hosting company, we can I use a company out of Michigan. I love them. They're a really, really great company. And we had issues. I posted on our show how to tell if your iPhone was being monitored by the DoD. And no sooner than doing that, our website got denial of service attacks.
Oh.
And, we know it was a denial of service attack. And because your viewers aren't, you would, if it was people like, now we legitimately could have had 100,000 people because it was posted all over Facebook on the instructions on how to do this. And they were going to our site. So you could have theoretically had 1 million people at our site. So I'm looking at our Google Analytics. That's not moving. And so, but I called the company and I said, yeah, we'll switch you over to Greenland, which it's a felony. They don't have any agreements with the United States government. And actually over there, that it is actually a felony to intercede, internet traffic or internet information. So they instantly moved our site over to Greenland. And, it was
very nice.
Yeah, great company out of Michigan. I'll give you their name as well. But, you do chew up a lot of bandwidth. I know. I see, but they never complain. It's still $15 a month for their pro plan.
Yeah, well, that's very reasonable.
Yeah. I love them. And then the other one too is Spreaker. We use Spreaker for our live feeds, and they're the same thing as well. You can do. They have 2 different plans. They have a 5-hour a day plan, and they have a unlimited plan. We do the 5 because our show's 4 hours long, but we are now in negotiation with a couple radio shows where we're going to switch from 12 a.m. till 5 a.m. in the morning.
Oh.
So we're going to do a 5 o'clock. We're going to go right in that slot of another very well-known late night show. But the difference with ours is free. You don't have to.
A long time coming, presenting a different worldview, different perspective at that time of night.
Yes. And and the main thing is that we'll never charge. We'll never, I said, nope, it's in our business plan and our 10-year plan is, we will never charge for these fees. Why should I? When I'm paying $15 a month? I mean, why? I mean, come on, I can afford that. That's a cheeseburger at McDonald's these days.
That's kind of how we approach it too. So
yeah. So great thing. So not only do you have now, is that class that you do on Sunday? So that's a live? Or is it recorded?
No, it's recorded. We had started doing it live via Blog Talk Radio. We were using Blog Talk Radio for that, and also because of they made it very easy. All the post production is on their end. They host all the files afterwards. But
sure.
When we moved from the town here in the Ozarks to a beautiful spot out in the country, not too far out. It only takes about 12 minutes to get into the office, but we're far enough outside the city that we can't get cable here, which means internet has to come via satellite.
Yep.
So we're limited to, first of all, 10 gigs of data per month on our internet connection, which is like a phone plan. So, no more Netflix streaming for us. In fact, but it also means when we do something like this, I've got to use my phone. So this whole conversation is coming through my phone. Off my phone data plan. So, we record it and we upload it, and it's usually up by early to mid-afternoon on Sunday. Sure. We'll get one of them out and then, take a break, eat lunch, and come back and do the second hour. And it's just been a really great way for us to get into the Word and spend Sundays. It's not that we ourselves are opposed to being active members of a church body. We were back in Illinois and Indiana. We were very active members of a church there. But we had heard from so many folks who just said we haven't found a place that will teach, for example, or go through the Bible and discuss the Bible even with the divine counsel worldview in mind. That Mike Heiser has made such a key part of his work. Yep. And when you understand that there are entities out there, evil entities who want to destroy you and your family and everyone you love, and that's in large part what is going on in the narrative of the Bible, it makes the Old Testament especially easier to understand. Why God had to do certain things, especially during the conquest of Canaan, where God was ordering Joshua, okay, these people here, they are harem. They are under the ban. They are to be utterly destroyed. Everything that they own, destroyed. Don't take anything. Kill them all, burn everything. There's a reason for that. There's a spiritual reason for that. Now, skeptics aren't going to buy that. They're going to, judge by human standards, say, well, that's capricious. That's evil. God is a genocidal maniac.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. You don't get it. Until you get it, then just go away because, pearls before swine. You're just not going to get it. But for Christians, it can be a problem to understand, how can God be so mean? Well, it's not meanness. There was a reason for it. These are people who were so totally sold out to the enemy that God had determined that these are people who are going to destroy the Israelites, and in so doing, destroy the bloodline through which the Messiah would ultimately come to save us all. It was literally a matter of life and death, not just for the Israelites, but for all of us who've been grafted into Israel through the work of the apostles to the Gentiles, like Paul and Barnabas and Timothy and Silas and so forth. But you don't understand any of that if we are taught the Bible the way it's been taught for 1,600 years, ever since Augustine, really, that there is only one God. There are no other gods except for capital G God. And I think that's a hang-up that we English speakers especially have, because we attribute a certain set of characteristics to that word, G-O-D. And the truth is that according to the Hebrews and their neighbors in the ancient world, there were many gods, but there's only one that was supreme.
Yeah.
It's like the political situation in Ireland of 2,000 years ago. You had a bunch of kings, but you only had one high king.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing in the cosmos, except that this high king, Yahweh, created all of the other kings, spoke them all into existence. Some of them chose to rebel anyway.
Yeah.
Call them fallen angels if you want to, but that's how it is. The Bible calls them gods. God in the Bible calls them gods. So I'm on pretty firm footing here when I say that there are multiple gods. It is not polytheism.
Oh. Yeah.
And again, so that is why we undertook this Gilbert House Fellowship and why we do what we do on Sundays. Again, not that because we are tired of church we love singing in the choir. We love, worship music. We love, being around other believers. But for us, getting into the Bible the way we've done over the last year and a half through this weekly Gilbert House Fellowship is, I'm sure we get more out of it than the people who download and listen to the files do, but that's okay.
Well, you're going to have, I can already promise you're going to have 2 more listeners. Because we're the same way. Sandy and I are exactly the same way. It's, how do I say this? It's hard to find a fellowship that follows the Bible. And we talk about the New World Order and everything. A lot of these ministers, especially in some of these mega churches, they're no different than the cable news networks and all of those. Their message is, there's certain things that when I sit and listen to a preacher and he talks about certain topics, and there's only one viewpoint, and that's God's viewpoint on those topics. It's pretty open and closed. And the minute I hear him start giving us the New World Order, the one nation, the United Nation system or belief, then I know that they're a shill, and I move on. And talking about shill, I don't know if you heard, the United Nations came out today, UNESCO came out today and said that we, the United States, must pay reparations for slavery.
No, I didn't say that.
It came out today.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they UNESCO, and they said because of the slavery and the fact of all the the shootings and the things that are going on and stuff that we have not repented. Here we are, the United Nations of all people sitting on high judging us, saying that we have not repented enough as a nation, and thus we must now pay reparations.
Well, that's again, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I just shake my head, and it's how my belief is this: yes, slavery is wrong. But if we're so concerned about slavery and we talk about it, why aren't we dealing with, as a country, as a nation, as a world, dealing with sex trafficking and slavery? There's slavery going on every day. And what's really sad and what's really sick is that when you boil it down to it, and I'm not saying any politician, I'm not going to name politicians, but they're finding that a lot of the politicians, the global elites, the people that supposedly are so appalled by this behavior are the ones that are participating in it.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, you guys on Skywatch, you actually did a series on Bohemian Grove not too long ago. Now, of course, you were talking about how that is strange. That is bizarre. Hold on. That's my Siri.
Interesting.
Now, wait a minute. I make a habit of turning my phone off when I do these shows. Yes, my phone. How did that happen? My phone. Now, well, my ringer's turned off. I mean, my phone's sitting here. But I don't use the keyword, the Hey Siri, the keyword. And if I did, it would have done it right there, and it didn't do it.
Interesting.
That was weird. Something triggered my phone what was it telling me to do? Of course I can't.
Well, you know that the microphones on those phones are live, even when the phone is turned off, powered off. So
correct.
Can be made live. Yeah. Correct.
So yeah, that was bizarre. That was the strangest thing that I've ever seen. That was really bizarre. But going back to, like I said, a lot of these politics. So if we're so aghast at the slavery, we have modern day slavery going on right now.
Yeah, we interviewed a woman named Opal Singleton, who's got a ministry that is essential in this day called millionkids.org. And what she can tell you about that practice is just, it's terrifying. It's far more prevalent than we think it is. And because of technology, like the one that just went live on you there by surprise, we're giving these to our kids and our grandkids. We are allowing people into their bedrooms that we would never let pass the front door.
Yep. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, our house is automated. I mean, we have all the systems, and I can go into the living room and turn lights on and off, and you're absolutely right. I watch what goes across the traffic we have a firewall, and I'm able to watch the actual traffic that goes through. I will have to say though, there's one that I'm really impressed with, and it doesn't pick up on what you're saying unless you say the keyword, and then the traffic flows. So they're not listening 24/7 like some of these. Well, obviously Siri's listening 24/7, but no, I have the Amazon Alexa app, the Alexa, and she doesn't, unless you give her the keyword, because I watch the traffic. She does do pings because she's logged into the VPN. She will do the pings and say, "Hey, I'm still here." But I do watch the traffic that goes through my Barracuda firewall. And Barracuda is an industrial, commercial grade firewall, so it's not some piece of junk. And there's nothing that goes through it unless you say the keyword. That fire. Now, granted, it could possibly be storing that information and then shooting it all at once. Now that could be a possibility. I haven't ruled that one out yet. But you're right. Yeah, we don't have any TVs especially smart TVs in our bedrooms.
Right.
You're correct. They do
They
do
watch
turn
you.
those. Yes, they do watch you. And a lot of people think that's science fiction, but no, it is. They do. And it's not that hard to do. The technology is not, there's keys to everything. Well, like I said, with my iPhone hack that I posted up on the website, if you know how to do it, and if you have an iPhone, do you have an iPhone?
I do not. Used to.
Yeah, I don't have an Android, so I haven't figured out how to do it on the Android yet. But on the iPhone, we have instructions, the code that you type into the iPhone, and you will see that your IP, well, some of us, our IP address is resolved back to the DOD in Ohio.
Mm.
So it's all part of that SexNet or whatever they call it, data gathering. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, I know you are pressed for time and we're winding down. I wish there's so many more topics, but that's for another night. Hopefully you'll come back and join us.
Happy to do it.
And please, before we leave, once again, give out your websites, how people can reach you, how they can contact you, and listen to your Sunday, especially the Sunday. I can tell you got 2 more listeners. I know myself, and I know of someone else who's listening who definitely will be joining you.
Well, that would be great. That's at gilberthouse.org, GILBERTHOUSE.org, gilberthouse.org. My personal site is derekpgilbert.com, DEREK. And then, of course, everything else we do is at Skywatch TV, the daily news updates, the weekly program, and Sci Friday. Of course, Josh Peck and his Into the Multiverse program is well worth your time to watch. Sharon hosts Skywatch Women. She's doing some interviews one-on-one with some of the other ladies of Skywatch now, but that will become a regular program once a new studio is built. And we've got a forthcoming program hosted by Joe Artis called Teens Rock. Again, trying to put content out into the Christian media community that you just don't get anywhere else.
Yeah. No, I have to ask. So you're in the Ozarks. Is that the studios there in the Ozarks?
Yeah. We're a small town in the Ozarks, about an hour away from Branson.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, because your studio's pretty. We're looking. Well, we'll talk about that later. Maybe I'll help you with your audio sharing and stuff if you can help me with, because we are looking at building a studio, and it's pretty impressive. So we can all, it's crazy. Us radio guy, got into radio because I definitely don't have a face for video. And it's amazing how the video, everybody wants the video though. I mean, even though they're sitting there watching my head bob up and down, and as a couple people will say in the chat room, my squirrel eyes as I'm looking at like 7 different monitors, trying to make sure I keep cue and stuff. It's amazing that they find enjoyment out of that, but I guess they do.
Yeah, I hear you. That's why I've started doing a View from the Bunker on video as well. So we'll got that up at YouTube. That's
right. So Derek, I appreciate it, man. Taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you got other commitments and things that you need to be doing. And I will make sure that we'll get all the links up to your author's page or to your guest page, from tonight's show, the Gilbert House, all that. But,
appreciate it.
Yep. Look forward. You're going to see a head count, 2 more, and hopefully more of our listeners will get out there and take a look at that, especially as an alternative to mainstream religion and everything. So, all right. Take care, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, brother.
Yep. Bye now. Be well, be safe. So there you go. That was our very special guest, Derek Gilbert. Wow. Learned a lot. It's amazing. Time flies when you're having fun, when you're having a great, great conversation and everything. And I, like I said, he had another commitment he had to get to in the morning. So can't keep him up too late at night. Not everybody can do what we do here. So with that, what that means, let's do this. Let's take a few minute break here. And when we get back from the break, I will switch the lines over. So if there's something that you want to talk about, feel free. The Skype number is TMO. That's Tom, Mary, Oscar, TMO, space listener. And that is the listener line, TMO listener. Love to hear from you. So we'll take a quick break. When we get back, I will switch the lines over to the TMO listener, and we will carry on this evening's festivities.
Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is Jeff Norton of the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. You can join us live every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. If you are joining us for the first time on YouTube, make sure that you select that most important button called subscribe. Love to hear from you. Join in. Or you can go to The Midnight Ocean on Facebook, Twitter, The MN Ocean. That's @ The MN Ocean. I promise I will not spam you. We will only put out information that pertains to the show. Wow, what a great guest. Thoroughly enjoyed speaking with Derek and his efforts. Get out there to Sky TV, gilberthouse.org. I think I might have found somewhere where I can go Sunday morning. A fellowship. Sounds pretty cool. I'll check them out. And if there's anything we can do to help them with their audio and getting it out there, we will definitely do that. I heard, something strange is going on. I actually got during the beginning of the show, I got a text from someone saying that they can't find us on Google anymore, which is weird because when I type us into Google, I know some of you guys out there in YouTube land, type us into Google. Go to Google and type in The Midnight Ocean, see what comes up. I wouldn't doubt it. Censorship at its best. They don't want that message. They don't want to hear us talk about God. That's the last thing they want to hear about. And so it was weird that they said that. The other thing that was really, really bizarre is if you like to join in the conversation, if you are on Skype, you can type in TMO Listener, LISTENER, TMO Listener on Skype. Join us. We have it open. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give us a shout. Let me make sure that the privacy is set so that, anyone, except video. This audio only, but you can cue us in there. If you don't have Skype, I highly recommend that you guys get it on your phone. We're working with our app developers to actually use Skype so that you can Skype us from our mobile app, which should be coming out anytime soon. I was told it is in Apple's hands now. Apple has control of it. Yeah, you would. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was just weird because I'm getting text messages from people who know me and said they typed and they were like, what's going on? Not showing up in Google. So that is really bizarre. Maybe we're having geographical censorship. Maybe Google's trying out a new algorithm. Yeah, they don't want our news out, especially when we're talking about anti-transhumanism. It's pretty scary stuff if you think about it. Our last guest, Derek Gilbert, was talking about. Transhumanism, I kind of thought of it was like an AI, kind of like Transcendent. Remember that movie with Johnny Depp? Kind of got the feeling that's what it was all about. But, these rich people, these people in general, that are out there trying to cheat death. That's scary. Think about it. Obviously we live in a lawless society. There's certain elements of society in today's day and age who don't care if they go to jail. Actually, that's a badge of honor. That is a stripe if they go to jail. Now add one more. If you take away the eternal consequences for your action, what kind of society would that be? You have certain people who believe that no matter what you do, that there is no recourse, except you get locked up in jail, right? Oh, it's 5 years. I'll make $1 million. I'll do whatever. Or, I don't want to live forever anyways. These young men and women out there who feel that their lives are worthless and they don't see a future past tomorrow. So we have open lines. If you would love to give us a call, feel free to. It's TMO listener for those guys that have Skype. Come on, join us in Skype. But one of the other things too that was really bizarre going on the computer is I was trying to log into our Skype. Our actual Skype account for the TMO listener was blocked from Microsoft. It said someone was sending out emails on that account. I don't know how that could be. We don't even have this set up for emails. The only thing that this is for is for you guys to talk to us, to me. I think there's some shenanigans going on. I think Microsoft wanted my phone number is what it was. Because to unlock the account, of course, I had to provide my cell phone number. Tim Hortons. Best, cheapest coffee you will ever drink. They're not cheap coffee. I got to stop doing that. I probably will never get sponsorship. They're the best, inexpensive coffee you will ever drink. If you're within 500 miles of Tim Hortons, I recommend that you definitely take the scenic route, go up there, make sure you get a nice dark roast and a Danish. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. The other thing, too, is that we are here in chat room. So if there's a question you want to ask, I know some of you guys are a little bashful, don't want to get on the air. I get it. But if there is a question that you want to ask, go ahead and ask it in chat. We will filter. And yeah, Proxide, I appreciate it. Laura Croft, thank you. Scott Schaller, thank you. Thank you for joining. Love to hear from you guys. It's open line. So any topic, if you want my opinion, warning. If you want my opinion on anything, please feel free to put it there in the chat room, and I'd love to interact with you. Wow, our show's growing. We're starting to get out. More and more people. That's the problem with doing a late night show such as the one we do here. Most of the people are in bed. I appreciate you guys that are out there hanging over late hours. That's one of the things that we want to do. Not all the politics, but what's your circus, media circus? I think it was the tranching out of the elephants and use the political elephants and the jackasses. Yeah, if you and our guest tonight, Derek, was very so correct. And I do believe in that. If you believe that the president of the United States actually has any control, their job right now is to distract the American people. If you look at Obama, President Obama, and it doesn't matter who they are. So this is not a dig at him. This is not a dig at any president. It's all about distraction. They're the figurehead. They're the Oz. We try to find out who's behind the curtain around here. So last night it was a distraction. One of the things though I did see is I think how do I say this? I think Trump sees the writing on the wall. I really do. And the reason being, he came out and he made a comment today. He's like, well, Chelsea was in the office. Didn't want to offend Chelsea. Yeah, whatever, Trump. I think that he even sees the writing on the wall. Is that it is stacked again. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a libertarian, for those that don't know. I am a left-leaning libertarian. I think it is our responsibility as a society to take care of those that cannot, and the key word is cannot, take care of themselves. We must take care of our young, and we must take care of our old, our indigent, our soldiers. We made a contract with these people. But other than that, I don't like government and everything. And a lot of people are like, well, government don't build roads. No, the government did not build roads. I don't care what you say. It was people that built roads. The government took from those from us, i.e. you and I, the taxpayer, and then they paid for our friends, our neighbors, to build those roads. Those roads would have been built regardless. Commerce would have built those roads. They need to get things to market. So, but going back to your question about the debate last night, yeah. Like I said, I think it's kabuki theater. It was rolling out the elephants and the donkeys to keep us distracted. And about 98 million people were distracted last night. I watched it. When we had the storm here, and after I canceled the show, and Sharon, for those that are listening, Sharon will be on the show on next Wednesday. We're going to have her back. But it was definitely kabuki theater. Yeah. But I watched it from start to finish. I think that was the only debate that I've ever watched from start to finish. Because I was waiting for Trump to just lose his mind. And then I was waiting for Hillary to have a coughing fit and metal objects fall out of her pant leg. I don't know if you guys saw that, but yeah, in the video, where she was collapsing, Google metal object falls from pant leg. And someone blew up the video, and you can actually see it looks like probably part of some kind of brace or something. And, if someone's suffering from muscle issues or coordination issues or have neurological issues, which not everybody, but people are claiming that could possibly be the case with Hillary, Secretary Hillary. It wouldn't be too far to say that she had some kind of brace or she would have a brace. But yeah, go look at that. So if you want to join in the conversation, we have TMO listener set up. You can talk to me live. Or, of course, if you are in YouTube, feel free to throw in a comment or a question in the chat room. If you are not on YouTube, there's another way. That's right. We give you all sorts of options here at the Midnight Ocean. If you go to the midnightocean.com website, you scroll down about halfway down on the right-hand side under resources, you're going to see a thing that says chat. If you click on that, that actually links to our chat room. So you can actually chat with us live during the show from our website. And you can also listen. You'll see the little speaker up there, and you can click the play button and you can listen to us. So that's another way if you do not want to join us on the YouTube chat or log into YouTube to join us. So is there any more questions there in Chatland? Love to hear from you. It is crickets. You can hear them doing what crickets do. They chirp. I'm sitting here waiting with bated breath. So I hope that answered your question, Proxa. Wow. What a week coming up this week in our shows. So obviously tonight we had Derek Gilbert was joining us. Tomorrow we're actually going to continue our conversation with Sasha. For those that don't know, Sasha was on the show when we had the hurricane. So she'll be joining us, and we'll finish up that conversation. But right now, we're going to take a break. When we get back from the break, I'll feature a group from Facebook talk about that group. Maybe we'll get into doing some ghost stories. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. Join us here every weeknight from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and a podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. ocean.com. You know, this is my favorite part of the show. Well, my second favorite. I do enjoy talking to our guests and those that come onto the show, but this is the part of our show that I really like, is talking to you. And then there's two ways. If you guys would like to join into the conversation, we do have our Skype line up and running for you. So if you have Skype, you can go TMO listener, TMO space a listener. Click on that and give us a call. Love to hear from you. And for those that don't want to talk on the radio, you can also join us in the YouTube chat room. And, you know, Peroxide, I will tell you, seem to feel the elites are I'm going to read this for those that don't have the chat going. So Peroxide in our chat room on YouTube is asking, so many podcasters seem to feel elites are compromised via child porn rings. Do you think it could possibly be that widespread? It seems a bit far-fetched, but then you have the Jared from Subway and others in the news. Famous band members being caught and in prison. Jimmy Sivalis of the UK, Jeffrey Epstein, etc. Still, could they just be a few? You know, good music. Yeah, good music on the thing. Yeah, so first let me answer the thing. You know, this is the thing about elitists. Let me tell you the mindset of an elitist. And I know a few. I do. I know a few. And I've heard from their lawyers. I actually, a good friend of mine at a time in Chicago. We're no longer good friends. We had different opinions on a business matter. But I can tell you this. But prior to that, he was an agent for a very well-known basketball player. We'll leave it at that. And he explained it this way. He said, when you have that much money, when you are that rich, basically the sky's the limit. There is nothing you can't have. And unfortunately, when there's basic human natures that most of us, you know, I want to get into neurological stuff. I'm not a doctor. Maybe we'll get Mary Wingo on here one day to explain this to us. But in the brain, you have like a door. So you have these thought processes. People have thought processes. They think about things, i.e. murder, right? Pedophilia, whatever it may be. But there's this thing in your brain that stops that. That says, no, that's not right. You can't do that. And that's why 90% of us don't act on that. But what happens is that when you are uber wealthy, that door gets bigger and bigger. In other words, because there's nothing you can't do. Think about it. Think about, close your eyes. Roxanne, close your eyes. And all you listeners out there, close your eyes right now. Think about you now have $200 million. $200 million. $200 million would basically give you, just in the interest alone, I want to explain this to you. So, you go here, you go 200 million. I got to do this. I'm sorry. Can't do this in my head. All right. I do apologize. So we do 200 million. Divide that by 3 million. I do know these numbers. These numbers here. All right. If you had $200 million, you would make roughly $300,000 a month in interest. So if you had $200 million in your bank account, now you take that away. So you got $150,000, right? You pay half of it in taxes. So a lot of these people who are rich, and 200 million seems to be, that's where you're getting into serious money. I mean, anything over a couple million is pretty serious. But they say and the way you do the math is 300 million will net you about $5,000 a month in income, interest. So if you have 200 million, it's 66 times that. So at $200 million, which a lot of these athletes, these rich people and stuff, that seems to be the number, right? So they're making, not only do they have their 200 million in the bank, but they're making an additional $150,000 a month off of the interest. Not doing anything. They're not doing anything. $150,000 a month. So close your eyes. You're making $150,000 a month. What would you do? Buy a house, a couple houses, fly in a jet, hang out with the Kardashians. You know, you're not going to hang out with your Uncle Cletus. You're gonna do things, right? So what happens is when you get one, but once you get sucked into that world, and I know from experience, I've seen it first. I've lived it firsthand. Now I didn't have anywhere near that money. Nowhere near. Actually, I didn't have a dime, and I still had rich friends. I was one of those entourage guys you see on TV. I had rich friends in the technology business and very close friends. You know, spent a lot of time in some pretty cool places flying private jets and having a good time. But when you have that kind of money, there's nothing you can't do. And so where does the pedophilia and the twisted behavior comes in? Like I said, because the door gets bigger and bigger as you do things. You know, oh, I want to fly in a jet. Okay, check that off. Oh, I want to fly. I want to be on a yacht. Check that off. Oh, I want to have 3 or 4 girls, whatever, if you're a guy or whatever. I'll check that off because that's easy when you got that kind of money. Doesn't matter who you are. That's very easy to do. So you start checking these things off. And then after you wake up in the morning, because you don't have a soul, you basically sold it to the devil, you're naturally going to start progressing to the dark side. And that's why a lot of these people are caught in pedophilia. The taboo. These are people that don't like to be told no. They have no moral basis anymore. They've lost their moral compass. And that's my feeling. That's why I think that goes on. The other part of it, too, is let's face it, a lot of these guys are Satanists. They believe in Satanists. I'll tell you, we do blood sacrifices, 3 million a year here in the United States. We kill the most innocent of the innocent through abortions. 3 million a year. We offer that blood, that ceremony up to Moloch, the demon himself. Blood sacrifices. You know, of course, they call them surgical procedures, but no, they're blood sacrifices. You're sacrificing, you're killing babies. You're ripping their heads off, letting their blood spill on the floor. I know it's gross and it's sick and a lot of people are upset about it, but that is what goes on. So you have these individuals, too, who believe in the rape, torture, and sacrifice of children, because that is God's most innocent, you know, and the devil is all for whatever defiles God's precious people. So why wouldn't he do that? We actually had on the show, we had Manu Itarami. He is of Star Trek fame. And it's strange that you asked this question because I was actually pulling up Manu's new venture so we can give him a little bit of support because he's trying to raise money for the circuit film. And I'm going to play that clip here in a little bit to kind of help him out. And it was weird that you brought this up because Manu was talking about what goes on in Hollywood and some of the things. He alluded to it. Now, obviously, we don't expect him to do it because he's still got to work there. But he said it happens on the show. If you don't believe me, go back and listen to the show. Manu Itarami. But, yeah, it's sick. But I think the reason being is because when you're in a position of power and no one tells you no, and you don't get in trouble for your actions, I have emails that you shouldn't have had on these servers. There's a hubris that goes along with that. And that hubris is I'll do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. And if it's sacrifice baby chickens, I'll sacrifice baby chickens. Or even worse, if I want to participate in pedophilia or murder or sacrifice or whatever it is, I'll do it. I'll do it. Do I live? Yeah, we actually. Ooh, that's a good question, Proxy. If it's not good stuff. How about, do you live near any haunted houses now that you moved to Florida? No. Well, I say yes. I don't know. There's a creepy house. Let me tell you this story. So we moved into this small town. This small town doesn't have a police force. It's basically, we have a sheriff, right? And it's, we have the meth heads. And we're doing everything possible to run them. Our sheriff is doing a great job. He's arresting and he's bulldozing. In other words, he's bulldozing people's homes, for meth. That's the extent of our crime here. It's all drug related, meth related. Well, about 7 months ago, we actually had a triple homicide. And what happened was that apparently the wife was having an affair with someone who lived here in this area. And they went to, it was a quadruple homicide. So they went to the bank. They were meeting at the bank. The wife and her lover were meeting at the bank here in our small town. We only have one bank. To let you guys know, we have a Little Caesar Pizza and a place we have 2 restaurants. Shrimp Shack, it's called the Shrimp Shack, and Granny's. Those are our 2 restaurants. And our bank. So they went to the bank. They were withdrawing money. Well, the husband apparently followed the wife. So the husband ends up shooting his wife and her estranged lover. Well, in the process of doing this, they're at the bank, and this all took place at the bank. Well, right next to the bank is our city hall, and there's a park there. So there's a Vietnam veteran who was there, and he went over, and he was like, "Look, there's kids here. Basically, you guys is murdered." But he was telling the guy about the kids. He is, one of the things you're going to learn about being in the South, people mind their own business for the most part. But yet they're in everybody else's business. You understand how that works? There's some things that people just stay out of, but yet they're in everybody's business. But in this case, this gentleman, he interceded into this gunfire, the guy shooting his wife and his thing, to tell the husband that, hey, look, there's kids, be careful. Don't kill the kids. Well, the husband, in turn, pulled the gun and shot the veteran dead. So now you got 3 people dead. Well, the husband then runs across. There's this house that's eerie. It's an old southern mansion, like the moss growing and everything. So he runs across the street and he goes into this house. It's abandoned. No one lives there. And he proceeds to go upstairs. And of course, the SWAT, the state police, everybody show up. I mean, this is all over the news. And he proceeds to commit suicide. Now, I will tell you, that house, when you drive by it now, you used to drive by and think, oh, it's an old southern house. Oh, how charming. Nope. You drive by it now and you get the heebie-jeebies. You get the heebie-jeebies. There's something about it that makes my skin crawl. I don't feel comfortable. Now, I'm learning the more and more that I do these shows and the more times that I talk to experts, I'm finding out that apparently I'm sensitive to that kind of stuff. Didn't know that. But yeah, I get the heebie-jeebies. Now, talking about haunted houses, though, I don't know if you guys heard the show. I did a show this weekend with Sentinel Jeff Hayes, Jeff, and Lehman, and all those guys on their podcast. And one of the things, this is so funny. One of the things that I told them that I want to do is I am going to do a live show from a haunted, it has to be a well-known haunted place. Doesn't necessarily be a house. Because let me tell you what they dug up for me. But I am going to do a show by myself. I don't want anybody else there because I think it takes away. Because when you got, people act differently when they are with a group of people. Right? 2 or 3. I want it to be all by myself. I'm going to get Lloyd Auerbach to kind of help us with this. Now, Lloyd is a parapsychologist and a researcher, so I'm going to have him hook me up. We're going to get portable EEGs so we can measure electrical in my brain, EKGs, make sure I'm not having a heart attack. So I'm going to wire myself up, and I'm going to go into these buildings by myself. No one else. And I am going to do the show live over the internet and over the radio as I am locked up in these facilities. Yeah. Don't look forward to it, but I'm going to do it. Because I think it's going to be great. It's going to be great science. Think about the data that we'll be able to capture. Don't have any interference from anybody else. It's just going to be me, you, and maybe a ghost. So that's what we're doing. So leave it up to my good friends who have found 2 places for me. They're working there now. There's one called Bub and Mackey's. It's been both of these have been well known to be on the haunted list as far as shows. So there's a bar called Bub and Mackey's that's up in Ohio. I'll do a road trip, go to Ohio. And the other one is this one, which is concerning. This is a prison. They sent me a video. So this is a prison. It's Ohio State Reformatory. It's where they did the Shame Shock Redemption. Or Shawshank Shame Shock. Shawshank Redemption. So this is what I'm going to do here. If we can get this worked out, I am actually going to this show, or to this prison, and I'm going to spend a night there by myself. Now, I'll be broadcasting live the whole time, and I'll be taking callers and chat room suggestions and talking to people in the earpiece, or, they'll be talking to me. But, yeah, the things I do for your entertainment. I'm going to do it. Yeah, practically go at least with one. Well, there's going to be people outside. They're going to be laughing at me. I was telling Sandy, I said, especially at the prison, you're going to see me because it's a prison. So you're going to see my light moving through the prison, right? And then you're going to see it moving through the prison. Moving through the prison. But no, we're going to do it live. We're trying to get it arranged right now. There's obviously some things that we have to do at a time. But yeah, that's the goal. I want to know. I want to believe. Now, I saw a ghost firsthand. Well, Lloyd would say I didn't see. I perceived to see a ghost. It was my perception that saw the ghost, not my vision, but the perception, which makes sense to me. Yeah, go at least with another person. Geez, I'd race out of the haunted house like Curly from the... Yeah, I'm one of those guys. Like I said, when I woke up and saw this ghost standing at the foot of my bed, 2 days later, I was gone. I took everything that was personal to myself and threw it away. Do I have an interest in interview? Oh, of course. The master. I would love to talk with Art. And not have a conversation, have a conversation with him. Talk about family, talk about his upbringing, talk about, one of the things you guys are going to learn, a lot of my shows, I don't ask the obvious. And, I would love to talk with Art Bell. I consider him a mentor in the sense that, I've shot him emails and I've gotten responses back, not direct emails back from him, but on the show. And he's talking to a lot of people. It's just not me. But it's weird because it kind of feels like, because I will shoot him messages. I have an acquaintance that is his next door neighbor in my old political podcasting days. She was RNC there for her county, and she just happened to be his next door neighbor. So we were able to get messages over the fence that way and everything. No, I would love, Art is incredible. A lot of people have said that we're kind of becoming Art Bellish like and our show. No, I want to bring the paranormal back. I want to bring the classic Art Bell shows back. Like, if you have an airplane and want to fly over Area 51, please let me know. Give me your number. I'll give you mine. Call me. Remember those shows? The great Art Bell shows where people would call in Mel's Hole, JC. I'm waiting for JC to call us. JC, if you're out there, I'm channeling JC on the Skype line. TMO listener on the Skype line. JC, if you're out there, please feel free to reach out to us. Yeah. Art is very sick. Peroxide, right? He's off and on now. He's been out of the hospital with COPD. Years of smoking. I partake of a cigar. Actually, I had my first cigar in about a month, about 3 weeks. I love my cigars. I'm not a cigarette smoker, but I love my cigars. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like a fine cigar. We stopped into a place today. I got 4 or 5 cigars, and they're not anything special. And you definitely know the difference. Now, for a guy who was jonesing for a cigar, I'm not going to complain, but I'm going to complain because these are nothing like the Cabanas and stuff. And these aren't Cuban. I'm not a big Cuban cigar fan. I think they're overrated. A good Nicaraguan. See, a lot of people don't realize a lot of the technique in cigars is how it's rolled, how it's made, how it's manufactured. The leaf and the seeds are pretty much all the Cuban seeds are everywhere anyways. And most of Cuba, when the Castro brothers took it over, most of the great cigar rollers moved to Miami and Nicaragua. They moved out. So we can get really good, great, not good, but great cigars without paying the price. So if you guys are out there and you Cuban cigars and someone goes, oh, Cuban, they're not a cigar aficionado. Most of the cigars that are ranked and people taste, you might have one Cuban in that whole mix. Maybe 1 out of 25. But I love my cigar. So we're going to take a quick break. And like I said, if you want to join in the conversation, feel free to give us a call on the Skype line, TMO listener. That's TMO listener. Or, of course, you can do what Peroxide's doing. Join us in the chat room, and I will answer your... Yes, I hear there's some great places. I can tell you all about them. Been there. Been there in Tampa. Tampa's a huge Cuban population. More so in Miami, I would say. Almost as much as Miami. But when we get back, we'll further the conversation. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. We'll be back in a few.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, my fellow Midnight listeners. You're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast as we sail into the evening, early morning. That's right. You guys that listen, call yourself midnight listeners. Welcome to the show. As we, like I said, sail into the last segment, the last hour of the show. Going back to Peroxide there in the chat room, yeah, I hear there are some places in Tampa. Yeah, there's the Cuban factory, the tobacco factory. It's very expensive though, very touristy. Can't get a good cigar. Now, I will tell you where I buy my cigars, and there's only one place that I buy my cigars, and that's Roz's Cigar Emporium, and that's in Ocala, Florida. It's about 40, 50 miles from me. Mike and his wife, Mike is the guy's known in the cigar business. Believe it or not, you'll find that cigar manufacturing is a family business, and not family as in Chicago family. Family as in linear, long family. And Mike knows almost all of the families personally. He's gone out to their haciendas in Nicaragua, Honduras, all over. And he's a great guy. And that's where I buy all of my cigars. And need to go see him. I do. I need to make the trip. It's been, since we started this show, it's been, we're on a budget. Can't spend the money like we used to. Have a lot of things. And for those that ask, my favorite cigar is a Chewy. That's Cuey. The gentleman who makes that actually was Russian. He's Russian, but he lived in Cuba for years. And then he opened up a factory in Nicaragua. But what's really crazy is that he lives here in Ocala on a horse farm. But incredible cigars. Now they have a limited edition that when they come out, I always buy a box or so of those. Those are the best, I think, cigars ever made. Those are Chewy. That's Cuey. Chewy cigars. And if you go to Chewy, CUEYcigars.com, you'll see. But I love them. They are by far the best cigars, I think. But, cigar is like anything else. It is how it's your taste, I guess, I want to say. What is a good cigar to me might not be a good cigar to you. But one of the things you need to do is experience them. A cigar is to be enjoyed. It's not to be smoked. Of course, you smoke it, but it's to be enjoyed. You are to relax. You are to relish the moment. I love cigars because it's about an hour. Like I'll get big cigars, big guy. And to smoke a cigar thoroughly, you're looking at an hour up to almost an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And that's 2 hours of just relaxation. Relaxation. Oceaneers. I haven't smoked an Oceaneer. Oceaneers is, let me look that up. Oceaneers. Oh, okay. See, I'm sitting here thinking you're talking about cigars, but you're actually talking about, instead of midnight listeners, Oceaneers. Fellow Oceaneers. Gotcha. Oh, like I said, if you would love to call in, TMO listener is wide open. Those lines are open. Or you can do which Peroxide is doing in the chat room is you can just chat with me there. Love to hear from you. One of the things, too, I do want to go back to this is I want to share with you us chatters. There you go. Sorry, bad joke. Name of us chatters, Oceaneers. Yeah. No, you're midnight listeners. You're the midnight listeners. That is your title. But go, oh my gosh, big smack there. I want to share with you, talking about Manu Intirami. He's got a new project out. This is a pretty cool project. You got to get behind this. I'm definitely getting behind it. I'm going to play the promo here. It's about 7 minutes long. But it's called The Circuit. And what they're doing, it's kind of like Project Greenlight, where they have all of the known Trek and sci-fi actors, you know, that travel to all of the, like, Comic-Con, all of the different shows, right? They're actually writing a movie. They're creating a movie on their experiences. It's kind of like Star Trek, Star Wars meets Galaxy Quest. Very similar. But the other thing that they're doing is that they are actually going to take scripts from people like you and me. And they're calling it The Circuit. So here's a promo. And if you want to know more about The Circuit, they're trying to raise money for it. And they do have a Kickstarter out there. But it's called thecircuitfilm.com. And Manu Intirami has been on the show, and we're going to get him back. He'll be back. But this is the promo from The Circuit.
It's pretty nice, huh? For 50 years, fans and celebrities have gathered together to celebrate genres of TV and film at conventions. This year is the 50th anniversary of the convention scene. That's pretty amazing. So I've abducted a few of my actor friends from Earth to make the world's most collaborative anthology film about the convention scene. It's called The Circuit. The Circuit. Whoa, easy, computer. Tone it down. Hanahate, stop messing around with that. Come on, Hana, we've got a job to do here.
All right, back to the program.
Okay.
So The Circuit is going to be a feature film anthology inspired and driven by fans who will get to work hand in hand with many of the same professionals who have helped create our favorite TV shows, movies, video games, comics, you name it.
Think Galaxy Quest meets Fanboys meets The Twilight Zone. Something very strange is going to happen in this movie.
Something very strange.
Like Steven Spielberg's amazing stories or some of the greatest anthology films of our time, The Circuit will not be committed to one single genre.
Although each segment will be unique, we'll make a film that follows a cohesive story. Hey guys.
Hey Gigi. Computer, cue Gigi Edgley intro.
Thanks for having me. Hey, have you done your super cool intros yet?
Oh, right.
Okay, I think it's time for us to meet some of our team.
That's a good idea. Computer, cue music.
So there you go. That's from my good friend Manu Intirami, his new endeavor.
Ooh.
Yeah, but we're forgetting the most important part.
What?
Fans.
That's right, guys. I have to tell you the most amazing part of this production. We have sensational writers that have written fantastic scripts, but we need you to submit your scripts as well, because it wouldn't be the convention circuit without you.
That's right. All you have to do is submit your best original stories, fact or fiction, that use pop culture conventions as the backdrop. If your story is selected, you will come onto the set and work with us.
So, besides the story that is written during the convention, I can't believe we're f***ing this up like we're f***ing this up. Oh my God.
Guys, we're trying to do a pitch here. Come on.
Seriously, did you hear the lady? Stop shooting your gun. It's and then I'm trying to get this campaign pitch done here, and people on my shit are supposed to follow the rule.
Everybody just needs to relax. Everything's gonna be fine.
So besides a story set during a convention, there are no rules. We are teaming up with celebrities and fans.
Exactly. We want your stories. We want science fiction, fantasy,
Thrillers,
horror,
drama,
Romance.
documentary.
Musicals.
Don't forget the Western. Walter.
Yeah.
back to deck.
Go back to
12.
deck 12. We'll get to the Western.
So hard to get good hired help these days.
Armor. Armor.
We are going to be the first film ever to venture into the collaborative dimension between celebrities, creatives, technicians, and fans. And each fan that donates to our project instantly becomes a member of the team.
Yeah, that's right. We don't just want to hear from you, we want you to join us as well. A certain few selected very lucky fans that support the creation of the circuit will come on board and help us create this film from scratch throughout the US and possibly other countries as well.
Armin, why are you wearing a dress?
Walter said we were doing a Western and that you needed a damsel in distress. And I thought, makeup is makeup, and what the hell?
And like we said, the crazier the stories, the better.
That's fair.
We're looking for amazing stories. Like maybe you were at a convention floor and you stepped into a different dimension. Or maybe you met the love of your life. And at the convention the next year, you got married at the very same con.
I'm looking for a rogue cowboy.
You guys, we can't start the film yet. We're not even financed.
I hope you're fast, Kenny.
Yep. Walter, you're gonna be good. Just let me wrap this up. Remember, guys, the circuit is a big budget film, so tell your friends about the circuit. Share this video online. Most importantly, donate to the campaign. And we'll see you, and you, and you, and you, and you on the set. Computer, take us home.
There you go. That's the circuitfilm.com. Get out there. If you guys, $5, whatever, to help raise money for them. Manu is a great guy. Pretty funny. Pretty aware, too. For those, and when I say aware, that's code word where he knows about the New World Order. He knows what's up and everything. So, get out there and take a look at his new venture. It's interesting stuff. The Norton household's donated, and it is on Kickstarter. That was one thing too that a lot of people were saying this. I mean, I don't know if you guys know. I mean, we're upgrading. We're actually talking with a syndicator. There's some things that we have to do. Actually, tomorrow I have my first voice lesson to get ready for mainstream, so I can bring the non-mainstream ideas to the mainstream. So I'll be working with a voice coach, highly regarded voice coach, And so tomorrow's my first lesson. Look forward to that. I can already tell that I like her because I told her I drink a lot of coffee. And she said, just drink a lot of water. And that's okay. Because I've worked with voice coaches before that said no smoking, no water. Nazi coaches, right? Hey, no smoking, no water, or no coffee. I cannot live without coffee. So I look forward to that. But, yeah, I mean, we were talking about one of the things we got. If you heard the show earlier today with Derek, we are moving into the mainstream. We're starting to attract radio stations, different thing. And to be honest with you, we want to produce the best quality show that we can for you. And we've overcome a lot of our audio issues and things of that nature. Now we're running into some other just functional workflow issues. And we do want to bring back the hybrids. We want the phones, the hybrids being the phones, and also do more Skype lines. Talking about Skype, if you would like to join in the conversation, TMO listener, because we want to be your source for non-mainstream talk. I know there's a huge field out there. I get it. But I think what's different with us versus them is that we're going to bring you into the conversation. You're just not a listener. We want you to be part of the conversation. And in order to do that, we have to kind of upgrade our studio. We can't run, because each one of these components, it's a computer. Right now, I think we're up to 7 computers that run this show. So what we're doing, Nope. I want to address this right off the bat. Peroxide, no, we are not changing the format. That is a given. That is not, this format will never change. I will never have a red phone under my desk. I don't care if radio stations, I would like for radio stations to pick us up, but I don't care if they do. I'm not going to, one of the things that actually when I was talking with our syndicator, and we have a major syndicator that's going to syndicate us. We've already picked who they are going to be, and we're working with them. And, you know, the requirement though is we got to get our first radio, like real radio station, not a low power radio station, but a real radio station. And so we're actively searching. Well, in order to do that, there's certain things that they're going to expect us to have. And there's certain equipment that we have to have. And they want to see us make a commitment, right? They don't want to see us as being just a guy doing a podcast. They want to see that commitment. Because let's face it, they're making an investment in us. They're moving airtime, or in most cases, they're canceling other shows to put our show in its place. So, yeah, the equipment, I've been sitting down doing the budgets and stuff. You're looking about anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. Just in equipment alone. The board that we need to have is about $5,000 with its controller. The hybrid, the VX hybrid from Telos, is another $5,000. That basically what that allows us to do is take Skype calls and phone calls at the same time. Then on top of that, you have 2 different audio processors. You have the audio processor. Right now, I wrote our audio processing software, which I think is doing okay. It levels, so you guys know what audio processing is. If you've ever been on the show where the phone call is louder than the guest or the guest is louder, you know, and vice versa. So I wrote my own audio processors for this show, but they can be so much better. The sound can be so much better. So there's an an Omni audio processor. We have to have a delay, right? If you're doing broadcasts, it's one thing if you're on the internet and someone drops an F-bomb or something like that, or even on YouTube. We try to keep it to a minimum, but as you bring in callers and stuff, that's going to do. So we need a digital delay. That's about $3,000. Then on top of that, then you need encoders. And these encoders are what send your signal out to either the radio stations or to the internet. So by the time you add all of that up, you're looking at roughly about $15,000 to $20,000. Now, we can probably negotiate with Telos and Telos Alliance. That's the equipment we're going to use. I've already made that clear. I love their equipment. So we might be able to negotiate and maybe have them throw in a little bonus for us, right? Maybe something. No, I don't know. So, we were kicking around how we're going to raise that money. Because obviously this is now becoming my full-time gig. I'm not doing what I used to do. And so we were talking about doing a Kickstarter. I don't know. Maybe selling advertising, lifetime advertising at a fixed rate. So that way, as we grow the show, you as a business owner, your advertising will never change and you'll be guaranteed to be on the show. I don't know. We're probably going to do something. One of the things is the feeds themselves are always going to be free, and we will never charge for these feeds, ever. But what we will do is, I think we are going to have like a chat room, or not a chat room. We're going to have like a midnight listener or a pirates club or whatever you want to call it, where you pay a monthly fee. What that allows you to do is have access to the guests after the show, where you can write them emails and they'll respond back. The other thing too is that we're going to have a newsletter that'll go out once a week. So maybe we'll have a lifetime membership to that or something, for the Kickstarter to help us raise money. But yeah, the format will never change. I will not have a red phone. One of the things that we've done also is, if you notice, we take 4-minute breaks at the bottom and at the top of the hour. And the reason why we take those breaks is because when radio does pick us up, we're going to give that advertising to them. In other words, they get 8 minutes an hour of advertising that's all theirs. And we still get to keep our 25 minutes of talking to our guests. Because that's the other part too. A lot of the shows, too many advertising, way too much advertising. So this way you're going to get 4 hours at the bottom and 4 hours at the top. We're going to give to the radio stations. It's all theirs. They can advertise whatever they want to. It's theirs. We'll keep the internet ads and they can have the terrestrial radio ads. But along with that, though, is that they can't control the content. Now, of course, we'll make sure it's appropriate content, but we're not going to filter. If an ad company complains to a radio station because of whatever, that's between the radio station and them. That has nothing to do with us. So that's the other advantage of the way that we're structured. And our business model is set up in such a way, yes, we have done a business plan. We take that into account. Now we will own the internet advertising. Now, if a station wants to also refeed us over the internet during our show, we don't care. And they can place their ads on that. What they do with our feed is their business. Because the way I look at it is that we all grow together. Because naturally, terrestrial radio listeners will naturally progress to our website. And then they'll become internet-based listeners as well. And so we'll help each other out that way. But like I said, I don't know. I'm kicking around the idea. I don't like taking hat in hand and asking for people to help us. But if we do decide to do that, I promise you we will make sure that our listeners are definitely recognized for that. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to wrap things up. Get your questions into the chat room. I'd love to answer them. Love to hear from you. Like I've said, what makes this show is the fact that we always include you, the listener, into the conversation. We'll take a quick 4-minute break, and then when we get back from that break, we'll wrap it up, say our good nights, good mornings, whatever the case may be. Oh, that sounds like someone that we all know, right? But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. Join me here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. It is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Wrapping up as we're pulling into the dock. Wasn't too bumpy of a cruise tonight. Not at all. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, make sure that you hit that ever most important subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, follow us, like us. Please, we all want to be loved. We all want to be loved. And of course on Twitter at @TheMNOcean. TheMNOcean is our Twitter name. Kind of jazzy. Just kind of sit here and just bob my head. Listen to this great music. As we wrap up, I just want to tell some people, hey, Home Sauce, thank you for following us on Twitter. AU Forge, also AU Forge for following us. In the YouTube, GQ4362, thanks for subscribing to the show. Brings to Light in YouTube as well, thank you for subscribing. Ash J, thank you for following us on Twitter. Penguin Gaming 12, YouTube. Once again, thank you guys. Without you, we could not do this show. We got some more here. We got Brenda Gibson joining us on YouTube. Thank you. We got New Republic. Robert LaFollette. Sorry if I got that swallowed. Valerie, thank you. James. Juan, thank you for joining us on YouTube. We got Willie MC 45 also joining us on YouTube. Spitfire sent me a message. I have to answer that after the end of the show. Mike Street, thank you for joining us on Twitter. Coach L, once again, thank you. Laura Croft, thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube. Laura, I see you in the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. That's more important. Not only follow us, but also join us on a regular night. Thorn Lagorf, Cowboy, Joe T. All of you guys, thank you for joining us on YouTube. Lady RX, thank you for joining us on Twitter. Wow, we got a lot of people joining us. I'm going down. Oh yeah, we got Cinnamon Girl 96 joining us on YouTube. And Sasha Betcher has subscribed to us on YouTube. Thank you all. Thank you, each and every one of you, for participating and, more importantly, for being part of the show. Hope we live up to your expectations as I go through here. And we're going to make sure that we get these all sent out with big old thank yous to all of our listeners. We're going to do this actually every night. I'm going to go down and I'm going to thank all of our listeners for joining us. Right? I think that's the only thing to do. That's the right thing to do as a gracious host. You have taken the time to acknowledge our work, and at least I should take the time to acknowledge you. And that's what's going to make this show great, is the fact that we are in this together. Tomorrow we'll have a whole nother list. We'll add a whole nother list to that. And eventually we'll get it all caught up. That's actually a good idea. Someone told me that the other day. And they're like, hey, you ought to give a shout out to your listeners. And we will definitely do that. So Proxide in the chat room once again asked, do you think part of the transhumanism is that people have so much wealth on mainstream TV, reality shows, Richard Housewives, Kardashians, that they want to believe they can remain and not miss out? I think people are afraid of dying. When you don't have a foundation for your soul to go, You are afraid of dying. You think it's over. You become fish food. That's it. You become worm meat. And so they don't want to die. They don't ever want to die. The economy isn't optimal, and so many have wealthy taste because the media tells them it's normal. They feel less than and makes them feel like, yeah. I agree. I think, don't feed into this media hype. As our guest said, Derek, in the last segment, he said, you got to realize that even the news, they're not giving you news. What they're doing is they're appealing to your AdSense. They're trying to get you to purchase something from their advertisers. That's what it's all about. It's no longer are we giving you information. And because we give you pertinent information, you're going to listen to us. That's not how media works anymore. The supply and demand of media. It used to be that way. It used to be where I give you something of value, and in return, you watch, right? No, now it's all about marketing. It's all about hype. It's all about getting you to buy something. I know right now that I can boost my listenership back up to 2,000 to 20,000 listeners almost overnight. I know I can do it. I've done it. I've done it in other shows. But that's not what we're about. We're about good quality guests listened to by quality listeners. That's what we're about. That's what we sell. That's what we promote. And that's what we do. Yeah, I know all the tricks. If it was all about numbers, I can get on here and rant and rave and make threats and do all the things that other hosts do. And I don't want to take away from them because that is their stick. That's what they do. That's what they do. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. I'm down with that. What people do and how people do their shows and how they live their life, that's your business. I'm a libertarian. Remember that. I carry that in with my shows as well when I do these shows. But we're not trying to sell you something here. We have information that you need to hear. Now, our advertisers help get that information out. It costs money to do this, right? We got bills to pay. We still got to give on to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, correct? So we have advertising, but trust me, our advertisers are going to be in line. This is what's great about our show. Our advertisers are going to be in line with the message of our show, not the other way around. We are not going to line up for our advertisers. They're going to have to come in line for us. So yeah, you're not going to probably get some of the mainstream people. I don't know. Maybe you will. Maybe they'll wake up and realize there's a huge market out there of very highly educated individuals who don't follow mainstream media. But like I said, one of the things that we're going to right off the bat, this is my show. This is the way we do it. These are the way we roll. This is the way I roll. And if you don't like it, go somewhere else. I don't care. God provides. He'll take care of us. He always has. He always has. Man, what a show. Please make sure one of the things that you can do to that will help us out if you can't do anything. get out there and visit our guest website, gilberthouse.org. That's GILBERTHOUSE.org. That sounds too much like MOSU. Has that changed as well? Did we change that in I won't say Manchurian. That's a whole different theory. But has that changed an alternative timeline, the Mandela effect? Or is Mickey Mouse, is the mouse still the same? Is that still the same song? For those that don't know, we were talking about the Mandela effect the other day on Sunday when I was on a show. I appeared on another show, and we were talking about how Sex in the City has now become Sex in the City. And Oscar Mayer has become Oscar Mayer, and so many other things. Because apparently CERN has opened up an alternative timeline that's running in conjunction with ours, and things are bleeding over. I actually think it is a social mind F word. Interject F word there. I think they're seeing how far they can push us. It's all part of the thought police, right? From George Orwell's 1984. I think they're seeing if they can manipulate us to make us doubt ourselves. Because when you start doubting yourself, they got you. Is that not crazy? When you start doubting your own cognitive abilities, your own memory, they now own you. It's all a game. But please make sure that you get out there and check out Gilbert House, gilberthouse.org. I'll be there. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It all bleeds together for me. And we will be joining Derek Gilbert and his wife as they go through their Bible study. I look forward to this. I'm going to be downloading all of their episodes. Absolutely. So as we wind down the night, you guys know how this rolls. Talk about Ed Roman. Ed's going to be on the show Friday. I look forward to that. I really, really do. It's a pretty cool cat. And this is kind of our theme song, I would say. Now, our music, so you guys understand, I know that a lot of you guys have asked about our music. A lot of our music is actually provided to us by YouTube. Open source, free. We have different artists that participated, and we want to say thank you to those artists for doing that. Kevin MacLeod, MacLeod, actually provides our theme song. The song that you hear at the beginning of the show, the very beginning of the show, he actually wrote that for us. That is our song. That's our opening introduction song. How cool is that? Kevin MacLeod, so you guys don't know, is probably one of the most listened to artists in the world. Almost every video you see on YouTube that comes with standard music or whatever, that's Kevin's stuff. So it's really cool, the fact that he took time out of his schedule to do our intro song for us. But our outro song, I want to make sure before the last thing you guys hear at night is, remember, always remember this. We all need to work on this. We all need to make sure that we let those around us, not only your people that you know, but also people you don't know, that they are loved and they do mean something. They do contribute. And if they don't contribute now to society, who knows in the future what they might contribute. Or, they might pull the next person that fixes AIDS, finds a cure for AIDS. They might pull them out of a burning car. They might talk to an individual who is thinking about killing themselves. And that person goes on to be the next president of the United States. Who knows? Who knows how the worlds and how our lives are intertwined with each other? So the best way, the only way that I found, and I'm working on this myself, so don't think I'm a hypocrite, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there. Is to be love. That's all you got to be. And with that, I just want to say good night. And tomorrow we will pick it up again with our very special guest as we carry on our conversation with Sasha.
Occupation in a
Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack.